Seca, Trustee Ansong, Trustee Santos, Trustee Dygart, Trustee Davila, Trustee Adams, and myself, Trustee Skillen Jones. I would like to ask everyone to please silence their cell phones. And if we could please rise for a moment of silent meditation, and please then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance and the honors to the Texas flag. Trustee Santos?
Today's pledge leader is Cadet Luis Recinos, a junior at Westbury High School, who will lead the Pledge of Allegiance and the honors of the Texas flag. I would like to ask Trustee Adams to introduce the pledge leader, since Westbury High School is one of her schools.
Thank you so much. Cadet.
Can y'all hear me? You can hear me now? Okay, great. Cadet Luis Recinos is a junior at Westbury High School and a third-year member of the JROTC program. He has distinguished himself throughout his high school years and ranks in the top 25% of his class with a 3.2 GPA. Congratulations. His total commitment to leadership and academic excellence is evidenced by his selection as the Air Force JROTC Group Commander and his selection as one of the top cadets in the district. Top cadet in English. Can I give him a round of applause for that one? Cadet Recinos is a member of the Health Occupational Students of America. He is passionate about serving the community and volunteers with the Houston Food Bank and the Westbury Willow Waterhole Conservative Program. Upon graduation, he plans to attend Texas A&M and major in aerospace science and engineering. His goal is to eventually work for NASA as an aerospace engineer. Thank you, Cadet.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now for the Texas Pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Cadet Recinos. We're now ready for the special recognitions portion of our meeting. This month, we are highlighting schools in District 1. I want to recognize the Waltrip High School Jazz Band that you heard out in the foyer earlier. Let's give them a hand. They are under the direction of Jesse Espinosa, and I hope you all had a good chance to enjoy their performance. The student performances, we are pleased to feature a student performance by another District 1 school, the Hogg Middle School Choir, under the direction of Jay Williams. They will be performing the national anthem and Ode Tenenbaum. Please give them a round of applause.
Yeah, I'm going to slide it this way. Okay, now turn it this way. No, I mean move the whole choir. I'll bring it out. You'll come this way. Move up. There you go. Watch it.
So proudly we
Do, mi, so.
Do, mi, so.
Do, sing do with me. Do. Try that again. Ready? Go. So, so do. So do.
Thank you. That was beautiful. For our last student performance, we have Northside High School, their choir under the direction of Jermaine Williams.
Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, Lord, keep on talking, Lord, marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let no hatred turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let no hatred turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, Lord, keep on talking, Lord, marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let racism turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let racism turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, Lord, keep on talking, Lord, marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let no jailhouse turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let no jailhouse turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, Lord, keep on talking, Lord, marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, Lord, keep on talking, Lord, marching up to freedom land.
Wonderful talent. Thank you all. Can we give all of our student performers a big round of applause? For our next recognition, I would like to ask Dr. Carlos Phillips of Washington High School and Dr. Carla Valenzuela to please step forward.
Good evening, board members and our superintendent. Today, we are so excited to be here to help celebrate a recognition from a student, Ms. Valenzuela. She's one of my junior students. She submitted an email in October to request a mental health awareness assembly for the student body. I was very excited about this, and my wraparound specialist, Mr. Francisco Rivera, he assisted me in making sure that our community partners could also be a part of an assembly with them to make sure that all of our students and the community is aware of what our students are experiencing. And so today, Ms. Michelle Stacks from the Crime Stoppers, I wanted to make sure that she is recognized for her efforts and her leadership to make sure that everyone is understanding the simple issues that our students are going through, but it's a huge concern on many of our campuses. So Ms. Valenzuela is a great representation of leadership and what our student leaders are doing on Washington's campus.
Thank you. Let's have a little speech. Just give me a second. Hello and thank you for your time. My name is Michelle Sachs. I am the director of the Safe Schools Institute at Crime Stoppers of Houston. I'm also the co-chair for HISD's Student Health Advisory Council. So as you can see, I spend my days working on keeping kids safe, which is no easy feat. I am in no way alone in my venture, and I'm fortunate enough to meet so many in the community that are doing great things in the name of safety and the mental well-being of our students. We like to honor those such individuals, and today we are here to honor one of your students, which is Carla. So as you stated, she is a junior at Booker T. Washington, and we were so moved by her efforts and even just writing this email to you, right, to Dr. Phillips. One thing you stated in your email, which I thought was really funny, is when she said, "I may be small, but I have a very big mouth." Right? So she has had such a great impact. She requested this school-wide assembly to address mental health issues. Within a week, Dr. Phillips approved the assembly, and over 60 students signed up anonymously. There were over 10 mental health service providers available at the assembly, so students were able to connect with services there and then. Many students shared their testimony and offered support to one another. It was powerful and made possible by Carla's efforts. Her initiative continued past that assembly. On October 30th, she attended the Booker T. Washington High School Community Council, where she led a student panel discussion on mental health issues and possible solutions. Since then, Carla has continued to advocate for many of her peers. The wraparound resource specialist has also taken a closer look at the mental health needs that Carla so bravely brought to their attention. Some of these services include therapeutic services, Change Happens, Unlimited Visions, Phoenix House, the Houston Food Bank, Crime Stoppers of Houston, TAPS program, and mentoring. As you can see, and as you can tell, I can tell you what students' needs are based on science, on research, data, and even best practice. Although when a student asks for what they need, in spite of stigmas and fear, that speaks volumes and trumps all others. Thank you, Carla, for advocating for yourself and for your school. We commend your bravery and dedication. So please accept our Crime Stoppers of Houston Safety Sidekick Award in recognition of your initiative, enthusiasm, and support in keeping students safe and promoting mental health.
And we also have a certificate of recognition from the Board of Education. It says, presented to Carla Valenzuela, Washington High School from the Houston Independent School District Board of Education for advocacy and activism to raise mental health awareness on behalf of students, presented in Houston, Texas, the 17th day of January 2019. So,
Carla, would you like to have a word? Yes. Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Carla, as it was stated a lot of times. I know most of you here are questioning what led me to this decision and what made me want to speak out. I have been at Booker T for nearly 3 years, and each time I noticed that the people surrounding me were going through stuff but couldn't reach out to someone, because in most cases more students rely on other students than they do on staff. And this is a great honor, and I want to thank everyone who made it possible, my best friend sitting over there. And well, thank you very much for inviting me, and I hope that if there's staff people from schools, I hope that you guys continue to look out for students, because some of us need help. Thank you.
We have some really amazing and talented kids in our district. Our next recognition is, I'd like to ask to step forward Kent Klingerman with County Commissioner Jack Cagle's office. Are you here?
Well, good evening, everyone. It's an honor to be here with you all during School Board Appreciation Month. Commissioner Jack Cagle wanted to express his thankfulness to you all for the blood, sweat, and tears you pour into the students and into the community, and he has prepared a personalized proclamation for each of you. I would like to briefly read that on his behalf. The Honorable R. Jack Cagle hereby recognizes the trustees for the Houston Independent School District. As Precinct 4 Commissioner of Harris County, Texas, and on behalf of the citizens of Harris County, we offer our deepest gratitude for the guidance, compassion, and outstanding leadership you've provided within Houston Independent School District. Your tireless efforts and dedication have made an immeasurable impact on the lives of the children, families, and fellow educators in our community. Therefore, I hereby proclaim the month of January 2019 as School Board Recognition Month, and that's signed R. Jack Cagle, Harris County Precinct 4 Commissioner. God bless you all. Thank you for your time tonight.
We have now come to the portion where we recognize our Employee of the Month for February. Would Alexander Olesolo, principal at T. Arena Elementary School, along with Carmen Gonzalez, please step forward for this presentation.
Hi, good afternoon, board members, Dr. Lehan. It's an honor to me to present Ms. Carmen Gonzalez as the Employee of the Month for February 2019. She's an outstanding employee that has been dedicated to the students of Tijerina for 39 years. Every day, with a smile on her face, she worries about the students, she worries about the employees. She's an outstanding employee. And I think HSD is going to be in good hands with employees like her.
It's a great honor to be here. I have enjoyed all these years working for HISD, working for Tijerina Elementary, and I want to thank my administrators, Mr. Olasola, Ms. Motu, and Ms. Sanchez for nominating me.
So have you been at T. Arena all 39 years?
Yes,
you don't look much older than 39, but thank you for your years of service. That's amazing. That's beautiful. Wow. For our next recognition, I'd like to ask my colleague, Dr. Sergio Lira. Do you want to do it from the podium, Donna? Yes. To step forward, he has a recognition he'd like to make.
Madam President and Madam Superintendent and Honorable Trustees, I'm very happy to recognize some of our best teachers in HISD who not only teach every day, but also make learning relevant. So today I'm here to recognize some of our teachers who took 50 HISD high school students to Austin on January the 8th for opening day of the 2019 Texas legislative session. This group witnessed the election of our new House Speaker, Representative Dennis Bonham. They also toured the state capitol and met with policy experts and Houston area lawmakers to learn about the legislative process. The students shared their ideas with lawmakers about public school funding and also school safety. Their voices were heard. So I'm going to ask Trustee Ms. Santos, could she join me in giving these wonderful teachers a certificate of recognition. She also attended and was there present. As I call your name, please come forward. David Fanucci from Wisdom High School. You can help me. Emmanuel Arroyo Segundo II from Yates High School. I hope I got that one. Janet Orozco from Easterly College. And of course, someone very dear to me, Stephanie Paz from Bel Air High School. I believe she took the largest group. Tiffany Fontenette from
Sterling High School.
Sterling High School. Greg Marcel from Eastwood Academy. Aaron Harris from Westbury High School. Nelva Williamson from Young Women's College Preparatory. Nicole Gonzalez from Young Women's College Preparatory Academy. Are you sure that's a teacher? Anyway. Gabriela Mendiola, teacher from Northside High School. And as you can see from the picture up there, our diverse students, our wonderful students in our teacher list, give them all a hand.
And I also want to thank our kids, our students. If y'all want to come up here.
And the sponsors.
And the sponsors who made it happen. I know it was Fiel and Carlos Doretero. They are here. Let me tell you, it's no easy task taking 50 teenagers who are hungry to and from Austin.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Let's do that. We're going to do this, and then because Yolanda will be here by then. Yeah. Okay. We'll move to our superintendent's priority items. Interim Superintendent Dr. Lathan, can we have your presentations, please?
Yes, good evening. Happy New Year, everyone. We'd like to begin tonight actually with a special presentation and recognition for our school trustees that earn a great 000 annually for their contributions to HISD and to the city. One of the things that President Skillen-Jones mentioned a couple of weeks ago is we might at times disagree, but as a team of 10, we definitely believe that all children are important and that the needs of over 200,000 children in this city are important. So trustees, we have a video tonight that we'd like to share with you, just saying thank you so much for your service. Once again, thank you so much, trustees, for your service. So one of the actual major jobs of our trustees is to measure student outcomes. And so tonight, if Ms. Stevens would come forward, we have two presentations, two board monitoring updates, Constraint 2, Progress Measure 1, Constraint 3, Progress Measure 3.1 and 3.2, and Constraint 4, Progress Measure 4. And then we also have our January Goal Progress Monitoring Update and our monitoring report. Ms. Stevens.
Thank you, President Skillen-Jones, board members, and Superintendent Lathan. This evening, we're actually going to do December's presentation, which is CPMs 2.1, 3.1, 3, and 4.1. And you'll see that we're going to be looking, starting with Constraint 2. Constraint 2 is that the superintendent shall not require teachers to administer more than 2 district-created assessments per semester. The progress measure on that is to count the number and make sure that we do not exceed 2 per semester starting with the fall. And you can see that we are on track to meeting that constraint. We had the fall DLA assessment, so that was 1 in the fall semester. And in the spring semester, we have the release star. When you look at constraint number 3, this is actually still the old language from the prior to the December change, because this is actually the December presentation. So the constraint 3 read that the superintendent shall not allow achievement gaps for student groups, including African American, Hispanic, economically disadvantaged, and students receiving special education services and English learners to increase in reading, writing, and math. The December change actually removed writing from this constraint. So going forward, we will just be focusing on reading and math. The progress measure on the old language was, first of all, to look at reading, making sure we decrease by 1 percentage point for each of the student groups that we're looking at. And the measure that we're using is the universal screener, and it's looking at the gap between the student groups as measured by a percentage of the student group that is performing at or above the 40th percentile on the universal screener. And you can see that for reading, we actually had a slight decrease in the gaps from the middle of the year last year to the BOY this year for African American students, Hispanic students, and students with disabilities. The gaps, however, are still large on the universal screener, but we are starting to show some improvement. We're also showing the data for the Achieve 180 campuses. This is just a graphic to remind everybody which campuses are included in each of the tiers of support. Tier 3, Tier 2, and Tier 1A are going to be in the Achieve 180 office. So that's the first set of graphics that we'll look at. And that also excludes the Texas Connections Academy because they did not test their students on the universal screener the prior year. So we weren't able to show apples to apples comparisons. So when you look at the Achieve 180 office, we still have gaps that are persisting, but they are less than they were at the beginning of the year last year at this time for the African American group, the Hispanic group, and the English learners. We also compare that then to the non-Achieve 180 campuses so that you can see Achieve 180 versus non. And this is actually reflective of the data that we just saw for the district where we saw a decrease in gaps for the African American, Hispanic, and students with disabilities. When you look at the Tier 3 campuses, these are the three that used to be the superintendent schools campuses, the one that are receiving the most support. The gaps are still persisting, but we do see that there is less of a gap compared to last year's BOY for the English learners. And these gaps are in the single digits or low double digits compared to the larger gaps that we're seeing as a district. When you look at the Achieve 180 campuses that are in their feeder patterns reporting to their regular area superintendent, gaps are also persisting, but they are a little bit less than last year's beginning of the year gaps for Hispanic and L students, going from 12 percentage points to 9 percentage points and from 4 percentage points to 2 percentage points. Constrained Progress Measure 3.3 is the same information, but looking at it for math. And using the universal screener data, we can see that the gaps are still persisting, but we did see a decrease for the students with disabilities. That decreased 4 percentage points from 43 at MOI to 39 at BOI. It's also lower than the beginning of the year in 2017-18 as well. And when you look at the data for the Achieve 180 office, again, we still are seeing some gaps, but what's exciting here is that the Hispanic students are outperforming the white students. So that's why the gap is a -2. And you can also see that there is a decrease in the gap for the students with disabilities compared to students without disabilities, going from 31 percentage points to 29 percentage points. And comparing to BOY last year to BOY this year, L's also decreased from 13% to 9%. And the non-Achieve 180 program schools, you can see that's similar to what the district results were, where there is a decrease in the gap only for the students with disabilities group. And when you look at the Tier 3 campuses that are receiving the most services, again, the African American students outperforming the white students, same way with the Hispanic students. There's also a small number of white students on these campuses, but you can see that those students are outperforming and have closed and basically reversed the gap than what we saw at the middle of the year last year. And there is a closing of the gaps compared to the beginning of the year, BOY, last year to this year for students with disabilities and English language learners. And for the campuses that are in their feeder patterns reporting to their area superintendent, you can see that there was a decrease in gaps for students with disabilities and English learners, down to 32% for students with disabilities, still a very high gap, but less than it was at 35 and 37% the prior two reporting periods. The fourth constraint that we're looking at is that the superintendent will not allow struggling schools to operate without highly qualified leaders and teachers in core subjects. And making sure that we understand what struggling schools are. Those are the ones who are improvement required, formerly improvement required, or schools in danger of becoming improvement required. And for Constrained Progress Measure 4.1, we're specifically looking at campus administrators, making sure that we are increasing the percent that are rated effective or highly effective by at least 2 percentage points annually. And we can see we actually exceeded that goal. We went from having 70% of our campuses start the 2017-18 school year based on their 2016-17 appraisal rating as being effective or highly effective, to this year in 2018-19, we had 87% of our campuses start the year with an effective or highly effective teacher. Now, there were 86 campuses identified as struggling, and we had appraisal ratings for 67 of them. So that means 58 out of 67 campuses started the year with an effective or highly effective principal. And that concludes the December presentation that is delayed a month. And now we can put on the January one unless there's any questions.
Let's just hold the questions for the end.
For both? Okay.
Okay. Then, Aaron, can we put on the January presentation? Thank you. So the presentation for this month is looking at the goal progress measures 3.1 and 3.2. Goal 3 is looking at the percent of students who have shown at least a year's worth of growth for those kids who had previously not passed or had failed the STAR assessment the prior year. And we're specifically looking at reading and math and making sure that that group of students increases or shows progress by at least 3 percentage points annually. So the progress measure for 3.1 is looking specifically at reading, identifying those students who were in need of intervention, either intervention or urgent intervention, and making sure that they are growing. So the data that we have to do for progress monitoring is the universal screener. So first to identify, and you've already seen this information, we presented it not only at the October board meeting but also Saturday. These are the students at the district in reading who were identified as needing intervention or urgent intervention. So 48% of our testers this year started the year needing intervention. So with those students who needed intervention, now the students who have been progress monitored, we can see that 45% of those actually showed an increase in their percentile ranking from their BOY assessment to their progress monitoring assessment. Now that's 3 percentage points lower than the students who were progress monitored last year. So we're not quite on track where we need to be, but that means that more interventions and more monitoring needs to be done for these students to make sure that they actually are showing an increase and moving so that they'll be where they need to be at the end of the year. Then when you look specifically at students in special education, based on a request from the board to make sure every month we're specifically focusing on the performance of special education students, we're looking at their screener data. So at the beginning of the year, you can see 85% of special education students were either in the intervention or urgent intervention box, which is similar to the 86% that started the beginning of the year last year. And as far as progress monitoring, 32% of them have shown at least an increase in percentile ranking from the beginning of the year to that progress monitoring window. That actually is still 2 percentage points lower than that group who showed progress the prior progress monitoring last year. So we definitely know that we need to make more progress and improvement with our students, but they're still kind of in the ballpark. Now, when we look at the Achieve 180 campuses, for the reading BOY results, you can see that the Achieve 180 office had 66% of their students needing intervention, and that would be progress monitored. For the Tier 3 campuses, 76% of their students needed intervention or urgent intervention would be progress monitored. And for the campuses who are in their feeder pattern, 64% of those students needed intervention or urgent intervention and would be progress monitored. There was also a request by the board to identify how many students that would be of students who are being formally progress monitored. And there's your count for reading by each of those groups. And then here is the performance. So you can see that for the Achieve 180 office, we have 37% of our students who are being progress monitored. They showed improvement from their BOY. That's actually 5 percentage points less than the progress made by students who were progress monitored last year at this point in time. Tier 3 campuses performed about the same as they did on progress monitoring last year at this time, 39%. The Achieve 180 campuses that are in their feeder, 45% showed an increase from beginning of the year to progress monitoring. While the non-Achieve 180 campus students, they showed 48% showed an increase, but that's 1 percentage point less than last year. So that was reading. When we look at progress measure 3.2, this is the same information but looking at math. So when you look at the district, again, this is data that you all have already seen of how our students did at the BOY. We had 32% of our testers at the BOY on math need intervention or urgent intervention, which was about the same percentage as last year. And when you look at progress monitoring, 59% have shown an increase in their percentile ranking, which is the same progress that we had last year for our students who were being progress monitored, again at 59%. And if we're wanting to increase by 3 percentage points, we are on track to be meeting that goal of 61. Now, when you look at special education students, for math, 72% of them needed intervention or urgent intervention, which is the same as last year. And for the students who are progress monitoring, we had 45 of them showed an increase in percentile ranking from the beginning of the year, which is actually more progress than they had made at the end of year last year, but about the same, but 1 percentage point less than they had made at the formal progress monitoring at this point in time last year. So 45 compared to 46. And then when you look at the Achieve 180 campus results, you can see for the Achieve 180 office, 46% of their students need intervention or urgent intervention in math. Tier 3 campuses, 53% need intervention, and for the A180 campuses in their feeder patterns, 44%. These are the number of students who were progress monitored in the formal progress monitoring window. And the performance of those students, you can see 51% of the Achieve 180 office students showed an increase from the beginning of the year to the formal progress monitoring, which was about the same performance as was last year, 52 compared to 51. But for the Tier 3 campuses, 50%, half of the students who were progress monitored showed an increase in percentile ranking from the beginning of the year, which is better than the progress that had been made last year. And the Achieve 180 campuses who are in their feeder schools also showed an increase, with 54% of them showing increases on the formal progress monitoring. So that's the information I have for you for this month. Are there any questions?
Colleagues, do you have any questions? Trustee Santos.
Thank you, Trustee Skillen-Jones. Dr. Lathan, so we know that student outcomes, whether it's reading, math, et cetera, are maximized when we have the highly effective teachers in the classroom. Additionally, Ms. Stevens, that teacher must be able to maximize every second, every minute of that classroom time. We won't see student outcomes improve if we are not utilizing our human talent, and that's our teachers. So when we grow our teachers, we grow our students. And I'd like to know, I think I'd ask for the research on whether the universal screener or the DLA, it's one or the other. It's either we're going to be test prepping or we're going to be teaching, we're going to have literate students. Literacy, we're focusing on literacy, one or the other. So I'd like the information the research that shows that the universal screener or the DLA, which one supports student outcomes more? Where can we increase student outcomes more? From what I understand from speaking to teachers, that the DLA, the district level assessment, is chunks of the STAR exam that are released every every BOY, MOY, or EOY, just whatever it is, but one or the other, because again, we have to start improving our student outcomes, and the only way we're going to do that is when we utilize our human talent, which is our teachers. And again, I know for a fact that every second in the classroom, every minute, our little 5-minute do-nows that are tied to the TEKS, every single one of those, that improves the student outcomes. So, Dr. Lathan, could you help me with that?
Yeah, we want us to get that information to you.
Yes, I think I've asked for it before. I know that the Special Ed Ad Hoc Committee, we asked for it, and that... So
we'll put it in, and we'll put it in, and we'll get information to you.
Thank you.
Did you want? Okay.
Is that it? Trustee Sung?
Thank you, Madam President. Can you hear me? Thank you, Superintendent, for the presentation. Ms. Stevens, I really appreciate your work on these. And I know that I appreciate the breaking out data for special education students, Achieve 180, including the ends, all very informative, and I look forward to seeing the updates for the coming progress monitoring as well. It's a lot of work, and it keeps getting better. So my first question is, help me think through some of this data. So on page 7, for instance.
Can I ask which presentation?
Yes, sorry. Starting with the constraints.
Okay.
So on page 7, for instance, you called to our attention some closing of gaps, right, for between white and African American students, between white and Hispanic students, for non-special education students. On the other hand, there were some increases for between economically disadvantaged and non-economically disadvantaged, and between non-ELLs and ELLs. And help me understand that, because I'm a little surprised by the data, because a lot of times that data tends to move together. Just help me understand what that means. If you dig down and look at crosstabs, does that help us to paint a picture of what's happening here that's more rich?
It could possibly, we have not had a chance to go down and look at this data any deeper than what is required for the board monitoring.
Yes.
So if there are some specific other questions that you would like us to address, please let us know and we can do it. But we did these specific ones based on the request for board monitoring.
Okay. Well, I'm wondering, Dr. Lathan, what story is this telling, right? We see some closure of gaps in some areas and some expansion of gaps in others. And I'm wondering if you could help me understand the fact that the data is moving in different directions here. What is that telling us, and how do we act on that information?
I think one of the things we see is, as we put more focus on one area or one group of students, sometimes then when the funds wants to focus shifts, then we might see a decrease. And so that's why we're looking at, and we've been talking about this year across all areas, ensuring that when we review the data and the needs of students, that we're providing the supports they need, but also providing the supports that teachers need in order to help students to grow. And so it's still an area of need. So the data is telling us it's still an area of needed growth as it relates to professional development support for our principals and our teachers, but also ensuring that we are focused on the data for individual students. And that's the area that we're working on and we still need to grow in.
Okay, thank you. And then if you could walk me through how we use this data. So pick a slide, right? So page 7, for instance, right? When we see, for instance, that the gap is growing for our English language learner students, then what do we do?
I think it goes back to what I was just sharing earlier, as we look at the focus around professional development. So the way we utilize data, not only from a district level, but also individual school levels, and then the schools are drilling it down to student/teacher levels, is the type of professional development that's needed to support, like I said, our principals and our teachers, and ensuring that's one of the areas, that's still an area of needed growth as we focus on ensuring that our principals and teachers know how to work with our ELL students, because it's just, like I said, we shift, we focus on writing one year, then we focus on reading, we focus on literacy. And right now, it's been a delicate balance this school year that we've been focused on writing, we've been focused on our ELL students, we've focused on special ed. So it's kind of been the running theme throughout our professional development this year for our principals.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm also curious, Ms. Stevens, so you called out the difference, the movement from the middle of the year last year to the beginning of year this year. Help me understand what these percentages mean and why that's the data point that's most meaningful for us to focus on. Just remind me, please. I'm sure you've told me before.
That's all right. So for the universal screener, we actually have 3 data points. There's beginning of the year, middle of the year, and the end of the year. But usually for us, the end of year, what's more important is the stars. So for the universal screener, what we focus on is really the beginning of the year and the middle of the year as a progress monitoring to make sure that we've got students getting the skills that they need, because the universal screener is not aligned to the TEKS. The DLA is aligned to the TEKS to let us know how students are doing with that, but the universal screener lets us know what skills they need. So when we look at the beginning of the year and then the middle of the year, those are 2 data points that we have for last year. This year we've got the beginning of the year. Comparing beginning of the year this year to beginning of the year last year tells us how we start. You know, did we start at a better place or a different place than where we started last year? If we're comparing to beginning of the year this year to the middle of the year last year, that was kind of where students were, and have we kind of gone back a little bit, or are we in a, you know, are we making some gains? So we can either do the comparison between beginning of the year to beginning of the year to say, are we starting at a different place? Or when we have the middle of the year, that was already with some instruction, have we gone backwards? Are we in the same place where we were? Both of them give us information. They kind of tell us what we need to be working on. Again, the universal screener is not what's going to tell us whether or not we're going to meet standard, get out of IR, how the campuses are going to perform. What it does is tell us what are the skill sets that students are getting and what are they not. What do we need to be working on as far as interventions are concerned, or are students okay and do they need to be just moving forward with their instruction?
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. And I appreciate the focus on interventions and that we're looking at this data and what to do with it, because some of these gaps are, you know, frankly really stark, right? And it's nice to see some progress, but the gaps, you know, persist. Okay, moving on to the next presentation for the goal progress monitoring. So let's start on page 5. So this is reading, and we have Ms. Stevens, you keep mentioning the formal progress monitoring to this point. So this is from, help me understand what the time period is. It's from the beginning of the year to a middle of the year. What's the end point of that period?
Not sure I have the testing window for the formal progress monitoring. Annie, do you have the testing window on that?
Or approximately?
No, the progress monitoring window. The MOI is going on right now, but the progress monitoring, it was in November.
Okay. So this would be looking from the start of the school year,
yeah,
right? Students who were
the
assessed
BOI
by the BOI.
was the end of August to the beginning of September, and then the progress monitoring was only for those students who were receiving interventions, who needed intervention or urgent intervention, and they were progress monitored in November.
Okay, so these are students that we said we need you know, to pay particular attention to, and then we're progress monitoring to see their progression. So, you know, one thing I noticed is that the number of students that were formally progress monitoring has gone down, right? So from last year it was 49,089, and this year it's 46,727. So I guess there's some good news there. Is that an appropriate interpretation?
Right, because when you looked at the percent of students who were needing intervention or urgent intervention for the district, it decreased. Yeah. So therefore, we've got fewer students that we are progress monitoring because we have fewer students who are actually in that urgent intervention or intervention categories that are needing that. Yes. All of the students will be monitored for the MOI. Mm-hmm. So everyone gets administered the EOI, BOI, MOI, and EOI. Okay. But the formal progress monitoring is only for those students who are receiving interventions who are in the intervention or urgent intervention categories.
Okay. And this report here, the MOI and the EOI numbers are also just for that subgroup of students as well, is that right?
No, that's going to be for all of them. So you can see it's much larger because for MOY, everyone is tested, and then also for EOY.
So that's our whole district then? 63,000?
That's for Achieve 180 office. So you can see,
okay. I'm looking at the Achieve 180 office.
So you're looking at the Achieve 180 on slide 10. It's the A180 office, the Tier 3, the feeder schools, and then the non-A180.
I was looking, I was still on slide 5. Yeah, sorry, I was looking at slide 5.
Okay. So that one, you can see for the MOY monitoring and the EOY, that should have been just the students who were progress monitored.
Okay, yeah. So it's the
That
same
wasn't
number of
all of the students who were
it looks like
tested.
there's different participation rates in the tests. Okay. So then, okay, so I started with the good news, which is that the N went down, presumably because there's fewer progress monitored students.
Yes.
But then the bad news is that we're not on track to meet the goal. It's 3% lower than the 2017-2018 formal progress monitoring.
That
right?
is correct.
Yeah, okay. So, Dr. Lathan, I wonder, how do you interpret this information, and then how are we using it? Thank you.
They don't know. It's similar. I mean, seriously, when we look at the data, because we have concerns, but we have to look at our instructional program, and we've talked about that through not only our Achieve 180 campuses, but our other campuses. We conduct our community of practice, where we're going out into the schools, looking at the instructional practices. We're realigning supports, moving staff members that are needed to support. So, if you have a teacher, let's say possibly in kindergarten, that really could help us at the upper grades, and then so the principals make those instructional decisions with the support of our curriculum department. So we're just constantly looking at that. We actually have quite a few of our principals here tonight that were here for professional development, but they're doing that, and it's constant. So it's just not during assessment time, but it's throughout, and it's almost every day as we look at ways to do different ways to assess if our students are growing. Because at the end of the day, it's not about what it is about STAR as it relates to our TEA guidelines, but it's about growing as students. So where did they arrive to us at BOY, and where are they at the EOY?
Okay, thank you. And then on page 7, that's a look at special education students.
Yes.
And I guess, similarly, question to Dr. Lathan, can you help us talk about the interventions and what we're doing to improve special education in the district so that we can see progress in this area?
And we have our team, so if I'm missing something, please, I'm sure Dr. Ferret is here, and also Ms. Moses is here also as it relates to intervention. So if you recall this past year, we asked the board to support an increase or support a request of adding dyslexia specialists to support across all areas, professional development training, not only for principals but teachers. Actually, this week we kicked off a lead, a special education, professional development for teacher leaders. So a lot of the focus has been around professional development. During our PLS, which is our professional leadership series, there's a focus on special education, and then throughout the year. And it's going to be ongoing. It's outside of, 2 years ago when the request was made for us to conduct the program review, and then we had the ad hoc committee. But it's just something that's a part of our focus. But, one of our main goals over the past 2 years is to ensure that we were identifying students that needed to be tested for to see if they qualify for special education services, and then providing them those supports. To be very honest with you, and I know principals, you can just do the wave. One of the things when you're going through not only your undergrad program, if you're not majoring in special education, and even principal certification, there's not a focus on reading or special ed, and those are the two big ones that we need support around. And so that's just been part of our professional development plan for our district staff.
Yeah, so and I really appreciate the efforts and the focus that's been given to special education. I guess just what I wonder is, given the increased investment, the efforts, et cetera, it then worries me that the progress that we see here is lower than a year ago, right? And I'm wondering, well, maybe is that because we're identifying more students who are only now getting special education services? But then when I look at the N here, it's actually a decrease from a year ago. So it's hard for me to make that interpretation?
Well, I will stand by the fact that we are making the necessary progress because we are identifying more students, but I'm not going to tie it to because we've identified more students, because I don't want any perception be out there that the students, because they've been identified now, are pulling down scores, because we don't want that out there. But we have tightened our systems. There's more focus on when we administer the various assessments that we administer to students to make sure people are following the process. And so we're making the progress that we need as it relates to special education. But beyond that, remember, we also have students that we test and they don't qualify, but they need those intervention supports. And so we've put a lot of systems in place. Now we're in the process of working those systems and refining those systems to ensure that they're tight and to ensure that we are doing what we need to do for children.
Okay. So do you anticipate that we'll start to see progress? Well, let me just conclude and just say that I hope that we start to see that payoff. Okay, thank you very much. That's all I have.
Trustee Fonseca, I saw that you rang in, but then it disappeared. You know? Okay. I just did have one question, and Trustee Sung touched on it a little bit. On page 6, we had 85% of our education testers, which was a decrease from last time of 86.
From 86.
And then on page 15, 72% were designated as progress monitors in math. With the changes that we made in special ed, you don't have to give it to me now, but I just wanted to know what the numbers of those cohorts look like. So the increase in the actual number of kids from one year to the next, so I could get a sense of how many or what that positive or minus change was in that percentage, whether it stayed the same with the 72 or whether it decreased, just to know what the numbers are.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. Trustee Dygard.
Thank you. I want to build on Trustee Sung's question. You know, I zeroed in on some of the same things that she had with the achievement gap and with reading. And, you know, as many know, those two things are troubling to me. And I always have in my head, you know, what is the problem? How do we know it's the problem? How are we solving the problem? And how do we know we found the right solution? And so, as it relates to those two things, not necessarily moving in the direction we want it to go or as quickly as in the direction we want it to go, the question I have is how, you know, you've mentioned some changes that you're making. How have you decided that those are the right changes, and are you monitoring to make sure they're actually having the desired impact that you're anticipating that they'll have?
So as it relates to monitoring, you can come on up.
Good evening, President, trustees, Superintendent Latham. So a couple of things that have already occurred to answer the question, Trustee Dygard. Just this week, the entire special education department, senior managers, program specialists, evaluation specialists, all went through data training with the OnTrack system. And immediately the conversations changed because the big focus in special ed, compliance is important, but move more towards an instructional lens. So just with that training, they begin to look at the interventions in the OnTrack system as well as the accommodations in Gold Book and see how they're linking to start to have more data-driven conversations with special education teachers. So one thing that we're definitely doing is building the capacity in those who support those campuses directly to hold those instructional conversations with department chairs as well as classroom teachers. Another thing that we're ultimately doing is ensuring that students with disabilities are receiving the interventions and progress monitoring with fidelity. That's extremely important. So those program specialists are there and making sure that the right interventions, that they're appropriate, and that they are receiving progress monitoring. The other thing that we're ensuring is that those designated supports and those instructional accommodations are there. Because of the fact that the kids don't have the instructional accommodations that they need, we won't see that. So we're ensuring now that that's happening and making sure that that's happening. When they're participating with the learning walks, with the area superintendents, the senior managers are there. We get direct feedback. We're able to make the necessary adjustments to support teachers, whether it's in English language arts or reading. So we're ensuring that that's happening. And then ongoing training for school leaders, for teachers around co-teaching, and as well as making sure that they're addressing instruction in the small groups. That's another thing that we're doing. So there are several things that we're focusing our attention, increased attention. As soon as we became aware of where our students were performing, we launched and pulled out all stops at that point.
And then adding to that, for all students across the district, are you noticing, and so it may not be specifically special ed, but on literacy and closing the achievement gap, are we disaggregating by school to say, hey, this school is, achieving the goals, closing the achievement gap, these other schools are struggling, what are these schools doing that we can learn, that the other schools can learn from? Is that kind of work happening for all students, special ed students, but also any of the other populations for which we're differentiating in the data?
So specifically right now for students with disabilities, we've already started the conversation of looking at it by campus, by areas, to see which students and campuses are actually making better progress than others, to hold those conversations to find out exactly what's happening and see if we can replicate and understand that if we approach it in a different way, that we can see the same gains in other areas.
Okay, but that's for special education. What about, Dr. Lathan, all of our other populations for which we're disaggregating?
That's part of the responsibility of our principals and our schools office. So we look at it by school, we look at it by student, and then they look at the instructional plan and design that component. So that's part of our update and our review when we're looking at data. And like I said, but it's ongoing. So it's not just about special education. It's all, at the end of the day, we want to know if we are moving all students, every child that enters into our school at the beginning of the school year to the last day of school.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Superintendent. The first meeting of each new year involves the election and installation board officers. We will now proceed with the election process. Nominations for office of president are in order. Do I have any nominations?
I have a nomination. I nominate
Just comments?
I thought when you said he was making nominations, I came in so I can make a nomination. That's why I was clearing in, because I didn't know how he was going to take it. If he was going to take it with us clearing in, or we just go ahead and just speak out.
Okay. I'm sorry. Trustee Adams is first. Okay. Do you have a nomination for president?
Go in that order of president.
Yes. Do you have a nomination for president? Trustee Song?
Pardon?
Trustee Song?
Yes, I have a nomination.
Okay.
Is that what we're doing? We're just saying we have a nomination. Yes.
Office of president only.
Yes. Oh, did Trustee Adams already speak?
It's not for that office.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yes. I nominate Trustee Tiana Davila.
Is there a second? Are there any other nominations for board president?
I have a nomination.
Trustee Adams.
Thank you. I would like to nominate Dr. Sergio Lura as president. If he would accept, if not, then I will rescind to first VP.
Do I have a second?
President.
I decline the nomination for president.
So we have a nomination and a second. There being no further nominations for office of president, nominations are now closed. All in favor, please vote. Motion passes 7-4, 2 against, 0 abstentions. Do I have a nomination for first vice president?
I nominate Holly Villaseca for first vice president.
Okay, now that we have elected our new president for the coming year, we're going to hold on the next nominations. As president of the HISD Board of Education for 2018, I am pleased to hand over this gavel to our new board president, Trustee Deanna Davila. Trustee Davila, to my colleagues, I first want to say we have had a very different year this year. It's been a roller coaster of ups and downs, but through it all, we have maintained a district that had stability and achievement that went up for our kids. And so I appreciate each and every one of you working with me this year to ensure that we at least met those goals. To Superintendent, thank you for what you were able to do for our district. Sometimes not with us, but in spite of us. We appreciate all the hard work. To our faculty and staff, we appreciate the work that you put in over this last year in keeping us informed and on track about what's happening with our students. To our teachers and our custodial staff, our bus drivers, our food service workers, and everyone who has a hand, our clerical staff, everyone who has a hand in what you do every day for our kids. We know that you are the boots on the ground that make this machine run, and we appreciate everything that you do for our kids each and every single day, getting up to ensure that these kids have what they need when they are greeted at our doors every day. We appreciate you for that. To Trustee Davila, I wish you all the best luck, less turmoil, and more peace on your journey throughout this next coming year. And I'm happy to turn this gavel over. This gavel is a symbol of authority, wielded unflinchingly. Oh, I'll wait till you get here. Yes. This gavel is a symbol of authority, wielded unflinchingly but righteously, with courage, with humility and determination, but with compassion and understanding. As you accept this gavel and the authority that goes with it, may it bring you success to the district, to your board colleagues, and to the children of HISD. Oh, Lord. Congratulations. Don't leave. Okay. Always.
Thank you, Trustee Skiller-Jones. You're right. It's been choppy waters. I'm going on my 16th year, and I don't really know when there hasn't been choppy waters. There are always sharks in the water. I'm delighted that my first official duty as president is that of thanking Ms. Skiller-Jones for serving as our board president during 2018. And we'd like to present you with this plaque. Presented to Rhonda Skiller-Jones, 2018 Board of Education President, in appreciation of her leadership, dedicated service to the children and families of the Houston Independent School District.
Thank you.
You'll enjoy that gavel.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, got it.
Or you just tell each other where to press.
Or raise your hand.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let us proceed with nominations for office of first vice president are now in order. Are there any nominations?
I made a nomination for Trustee Holly Villaseca.
Nomination has been made and it's been seconded. Are there any other nominations for first vice president?
There being no further nominations for the office of First Vice President, nominations are now closed. All those in favor, please vote. All right, I can't vote over here, though. Trustee Adams. Motion passes 7-4, 0 against, 1 abstain. Congratulations, Ms. Oh, 1 against, 1 abstention. Trustee Villaseca, congratulations. We are now Office of Second Vice President. Nomination for the Office of Second Vice President are now in order. Do I have a motion to nominate?
I nominate, so moved. I nominate Elizabeth Santos, second VP.
Can you turn on your mic?
Yep. I nominate Elizabeth Santos, second VP.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any nominations for Second Vice President? There being no further nominations for the office of Second Vice President, nominations are now closed. Please vote. Well.
Wait.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Technical difficulties. Motion carries 7-4, 2 against, 0 abstentions. Congratulations. Trustee Santos, you are now Second Vice President. Office of Secretary. Nominations for the Office of Secretary are now in order. Do I have a motion to nominate?
I move to nominate Dr. Lira for Secretary.
Is there a motion has been made for Dr. Lira and there's been second. Are there any other nominations for Secretary? There being no further nominations for the Office of Secretary, nominations are now closed. All those in favor, please vote. It says that like that. Right. Motion carries 9-4, 0 against, and 0 abstention. Congratulations, Dr. Lira. We are now looking for nominations for Office of Assistant Secretary are now in order. Do I have a motion to nominate?
I move to nominate Trustee Sung for Assistant Secretary.
Make a motion to nominate.
I can't. Okay, there's been a motion. I need a second first before we move on.
Second.
Second? Okay. A motion has been made by Ms. Santos and has been seconded by Ms. Villaseca for Office of Secretary for Ms. Sung.
I have a question.
Assistant Secretary.
I have a question. So if there are 2 nominations, how
He hasn't made his yet. I'm about to go to him.
Okay. Okay.
Dr. Lira, do you have a nomination also?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Trustee Sue Dygard for Assistant Secretary.
I second.
We vote.
I know. So the reason why I'm asking, so there was the first motion on the, I'm sorry, this is to legal, right? We had a legal, I'm sorry, Ms. Lisa, I'm sorry. So we had a first motion on the floor, and it was moved and seconded for the first one. Do we vote individually, or how do we vote for both of them at the exact same time? Because wouldn't the original motion carry first? So there was a first motion on the floor for Trustee Song, and it was seconded by Trustee Velaseca. Wouldn't that first motion go for us to vote? Because we can't vote for two at the exact same time. So we need to vote on that motion. Is that correct?
Under Robert's rules, you take all of your nominations first. You close nominations, and then you vote in the order of nominations.
Based on this, okay.
If the first nominee doesn't get a majority of the vote on the board, then you go to the second nominee.
So that's my same thing. So we vote, that's the same thing I'm saying. So we just vote on the first one first, then we clear the board. So that means we just have to, they would have to take the totals of the first, and then we come back and we vote for the second. But how are you going to, I got it, never mind. We'll just take the first vote first. So the first nominee we take first.
Correct.
Song versus Sue, right.
So
the song, period.
I'm grateful for the nomination, but I respectfully decline the nomination. Thank you.
Nomination has been declined by Ms. Ann Sung, so we move on to Ms. Sue Dygard. Please vote for Assistant Secretary.
That was cold.
Motion carries 8-4, 1 against. Congratulations, Ms. Dygard, Assistant Secretary. Well, let's see.
So now we're ready to go back to our regular agenda, right?
No, she has. Okay. I now install each of you into the office to which you were elected. I charge each of you to be faithful and diligent in exercising the responsibilities of your office during 2019. All our new officers, could you please go down for a quick picture? So we're going to, and then we'll proceed with the rest of the meeting. Let's look. So we are not going to be rearranging the seating this evening only because, as you all saw, we would have to also program the system, and we've been told that that would take an hour. So if y'all don't mind, we're going to skip that part, unless y'all want us to do it. But, oh, whoa, that was quick. Perfect. All right. Moving on to speakers to agenda item. We have now come to the portion of our meeting where we hear from the public. We are glad you are here and look forward to hearing your views. First, we will consider speakers to agenda items before taking action on business items. Hearing of citizen speakers will be heard at the conclusion of the business agenda. Only those who have registered by 9:30 a.m. today may speak this evening. Copies of handout materials must have been provided to the board services by 9:30 a.m. today. So that each person who has signed up to speak can be heard by the board, we ask that there be no disruptions of the meeting by members of the audience, no abusive statements or actions, no threats of confrontations, no audible expressions by the audience of approval or disapproval. We have 18 speakers registered for agenda items this evening, including speakers on multiple items. Speaker to agenda items shall be limited to 2 minutes each. If a speaker has signed up to speak on multiple agenda items or to speak at the hearing of citizens to one or more agenda items, the speaker shall have 2 minutes to consolidate his or her comments under the first item on the agenda, for which he or she has registered, unless the total amount of time for the agenda item exceeds 30 minutes. If you have signed up also to speak as hearing of citizens, please speak to the agenda item first and then address your hearing of citizens topics. We also ask that speakers stay on topic and refrain from naming individuals, especially students, as their identities is protected under law. But you may name your own child. We ask that you please speak directly into the microphone. The clock on the wall to your right and on the podium will count down your time, and we will signal when your time is up. I ask that you respect our procedures and that other speakers and end your remarks promptly when your time has expired. Colleagues, please hold questions regarding any of these items until we are ready to consider items held for discussion. Our first item held for registered speakers is B1, approval to host Lone Star governance training for the community. Our first speaker is Mr. Jerry Monroe, also registered to agenda item B5 and hearing of citizens. Next, and after Mr. Monroe, we have Carolyn Melgar. I'm sorry, I apologize.
I didn't get to make your meetings this week because I was out there spanking your partner in Fort Bend. He gonna learn. You gonna mind somebody. I see your picture, officers. I need a shot of crown with that move, man. Whew. But we can battle. When the floods came, God sent 3 boats. And those that survived asked God, why did you forsake me? Well, he said, I really didn't. I sent you 3 boats. You just didn't get on them. I don't need to look for another superintendent. God already sent my boat. And I really don't want to take somebody from Waco that can charter the school. I don't want somebody from Austin that can charter the school. These are candidates. I don't want somebody from El Paso that can charter the school. I don't want an internal candidate that was in his last school district 60 days and they fired him. God had already sent me a boat. Kids are getting what they need. You have to learn how to play fair with each other. Get the racism, the foolishness out the room. And then go in there and start making decisions that impact children on a daily basis. It's school board appreciation. Come on, man. You know how to do this. You know how to do it. Don't make me go get that little change and have to run again, because this time I'm going to win. This time I'm going to win. God just sent us a boat. It's not the superintendent that's the problem. It's y'all. Get in your playpen and learn how to play together. And then figure all this stuff out. Because if you think you're bringing one of them dudes up in here, you ain't saw me cut up yet.
Carolyn Melgar. Oh, shoot. I'm so sorry. I can't find it. 1 second. Thanks for your patience. Why are you kowtowing to the state by promoting any of its governance policies? It's the same state that you all have complained about not funding our schools. It's the same state that y'all have maintained places blame on students and teachers with a flawed accountability system. Pick a lane.
When this female-dominated board took office, I thought, all right, let's show the city and our state what can be done. It felt empowering as a female to see 8 of you at 9 of the seats. When have we ever seen that before? But this past year has been very disappointing. Personally, I feel like you're squandering away a real opportunity to show the city and our nation what the power of women can do. Look at New Mexico's female governor. She halted the use of their standardized tests, knowing it was a disservice to kids and the system as a whole. Yes, you all just wrote a fantastic op-ed where you said you went in charter schools. I applaud that, but forgive me if my confidence in what you say is a bit shaky. I've seen talk without a plan or the ability to back your own words. You tied the superintendent's salary and bonuses to STAR after acknowledging the system is flawed. You promoted community input for a superintendent search, but didn't participate in a two-way conversation. You preach about equitable funding, but look at the votes for the kinder naming fiasco, or how programs offered to students vary campus to campus. We continue with the haves and the have-nots. Don't fear being the lone voice. You're not alone. The people who elected you as our employees, and that's because of Travis, are screaming at you to take action against the state and sue the TEA. And because you are the largest district in Texas, smaller districts are looking at you to make the first move. Again, I say don't fear being the lone voice. What worries me is that you really fear disappointing local leaders, your reputation, and your future political career. If that's not the case, then why haven't you stood up to policies and statutes that you know are wrong? You have power, but don't exercise it. What the story's about, we're here for the kids, I shake my head. If you were, you'd be brave, you'd be strong.
The power of 8, take a stand, leave a legacy, and show the power.
Thank you. I also want to thank those who are showing their jazz hands. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Hands, it's the ASF sign for applause. Legitimize the other language.
Thank you so much for the correction. Next, we have B2. Our next item held for registered speakers is B2, consideration and possible action to select a coach to assist the board with Lone Star governance and related governance and team building matters. First speaker registered is Karina Leon, followed by Mindy Wilson, followed by Kay Douglas.
This agenda item doesn't specifically state who you have in mind to be your coach, but I've heard some of you mention AJ Crable's name. And after the November 27th workshop, Mr. Crable chased 3 of us down and engaged us in conversation in an attempt to convince us of why he would be the best person for the job. 2 hours later, we remained unconvinced. And for the record, Mr. Crable does not limit himself solely to the state of Texas. He goes all over providing his services. Did you all happen to see the havoc he caused in Greensboro, North Carolina with their school board just last week? You should check it out. I've wondered if perhaps you find yourselves in a similar situation like when this board was coerced into adopting Lone Star governance, and in exchange the commissioner would approve the Kashmir turnaround plan. I am just so perplexed. It baffles the mind as to why anyone would even entertain the idea of willingly inviting TEA into their house. Some of you publicly complain about TEA and their interference in your affairs, while behind the scenes you solicit Mr. AJ to help with write your constraints, your ELA local policy, and now you're considering him as your coach? This person isn't qualified to be the TEA's Deputy Commissioner of Governance, and he certainly isn't qualified to be your coach or mediator. Whatever problems you may have now will only be made worse. And this will certainly not benefit any of our most neglected students. Don't shoot yourselves in the foot and invite him into your house. You will live to regret it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Ms. Mindy Wilson, followed by Kay Douglas.
I think the vision and values articulated in your recent op-ed are very important, but they don't line up with anything valued by TEA, their officers, or the state legislature. If they valued neighborhood schools, they wouldn't try replacing them with privately managed schools that don't serve all kids in the school zone. If they valued equity, they wouldn't have waited 30 years to talk about updating the funding model. If they cared about individual learning needs, they would identify, fund, and serve those needing special education. This board may need a certified professional dedicated to helping you work through your interpersonal issues, But you certainly don't need another person talking about Lone Star governance or asking you to look at test data. Yes, neighborhood schools are the cornerstone of our community, and the neighborhood school my children attend is not being served properly by this administration. We are into our 4th principal in less than 2 years, currently searching for our 5th. During the summer of 2017, our principal was promoted to run a middle school. The next principal served a year and was moved to a different campus. The 3rd principal served for 3 months, is currently under investigation, and now the interim principal is waiting for her replacement. How on earth is this allowed to happen? Our lack of consistent leadership isn't unique. There are many other schools in HISD who share our experience. Our school is labeled improvement required, but I ask, who needs to improve in this situation? Not the teachers who give everything of themselves to educate our children without constant and reliable leadership. Not the students who show up every day despite the label placed on their campus. The only people who have failed here are the same central administrators who continue to shuffle principals in the district like they're a deck of cards. I ask the board to also demand this administration does better. Require that principals remain on campuses for 5 years before promoting them, stop destabilizing leaderships in our communities, or, like true cornerstones, your neglect will make these communities crumble.
Next, Ms. Kay Douglas.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Latham, Board. Thank you for giving me time to speak to you today. I have come tonight to offer my services and the services of the Texas Association of School Boards to act as your coach. As you all know, my boss, Dr. Phil Gore, facilitated your meeting on Saturday, and he had nothing but praise. He said that the questions that you asked were appropriate, the things that you did were what needed to be done, and he asked me to convey to you our thanks for your service, your perseverance, your dedication. And I say that because I served as your new president for 16 years on a school board. So I know what I'm talking about. I know the things that you all face. What I would like to also say is I spent the first part of this week going to 5 of your 6 community meetings for your superintendent search. Nothing but praise for your search team, but I heard lots of compliments for the district, and I heard some concerns. And I would like to help you address those concerns because you are about to face a superintendent search. You are facing the state breathing down your neck. We are going into a legislative session. And as we all know, a former president now, immediate past president, Skiller and Jones said, you are siblings, you squabble, but when it's important, you come together. And that's what I'd like to help you do. I would like to work with you collectively, but also individually, to deal with you as the competent professionals that you are and to stand beside you. If you should choose to work with Commissioner Craybill, I was at the Lone Star Governance where Houston ISD went in December 2017. I have been trained in Lone Star Governance training, and I am willing to work with him, beside him, because we can do this. And what I loved was those kids singing, "Ain't gonna let nobody turn us around." That should be your motto for 2019.
Thank you. Our next item held for registered speakers is B5, consider and approve addendum to superintendent search contract with HYA for additional community engagement. First speaker to register is Stacy Rayon, and then we have Cara DeRocha.
Hello. I usually don't use notes, but I am going to today just so that I don't miss anything. With regard to item B5, although I agree that there is probably more of a need of a more extensive community outreach, I'm curious to find out where the $20,000 is going to come from in an already exhausted budget. On item I6, the reduction in recapture payments, y'all should have done that a long time ago, if that was even an option, especially wishing it could have been done before the reduction in force so that some people could have kept their jobs. With item J1 and J2, if the reduction in recapture payments is approved, is there really a further need for a reduction at this time? Every year, that recapture payment that nobody really wanted initially but got bamboozled into is going to go up because HISD is continuously more property rich with the gentrification of the lower income areas. So what happens when there's no more force to reduce? Where will the money come from then? And lastly, I do think that Governor Abbott is wrong in his opinion of you guys. I think that this board has the potential to be really, really great. Some of you here are really here in the best interest of the children, and those who are not should seek a position elsewhere, plain and simple. Prove Governor Abbott wrong and do the right thing for these children and this district. Fight the TEA. No closures, no charters, no partnerships. Fight the TEA.
Thank you. And for the record, I'd also like to say that Ms. Stacy was registered for I-6, J1, J2, and Hearing of Citizens. Mr. Rocha is also registered for agenda item K1 and Hearing of Citizens.
I want to begin by saying thank you. Thank you to all the trustees sitting on this dais for the work you have done for the children of this district. Thank you for listening to the parents of special education students and responding to us when we have questions or ideas to propose. Thank you for item K1, which proposes adding a special ed teacher to each school's SDMC. Though this is a non-voting number, we will take what we can get. Please vote in the affirmative for item K1. Thank you for holding the community meetings regarding the superintendent search, and thank you for holding these meetings throughout the district on a multitude of days. With these thank yous, I also want to remind you about what you all know as well is the hardest part of governing, it seems especially in HISD. Please make sure that we follow through. Please make sure the SDMCs are meeting. Ensure that SPED voices make it onto those SDMCs. Please listen to our parents and take to heart and put it into your decision making about the new superintendent selection. Don't twist what we are saying to meet the qualifications of your favorite candidate. I have been through the selection process for 4 principals in HISD, and I can tell you right now that the community meetings for each of those principals was pure formality to ease the fears and sometimes anger of recently abandoned school communities. In all cases, for better or worse, the decision of who would be the next principal at my children's school was made before the community meeting even happened. Let's make sure that doesn't happen during the superintendent search. But I do have hope because the trustees are in charge of this search, not the Terry Greer administration. And speaking of superintendents, I've not made it to any of those community meetings, but I have y'all's attention now. So what I do want from our superintendent is I want the intimidation of our principals and teachers to end. I do not want a return of the Terry Greer years. I want HISD employees to be promoted because of their qualifications, not their last name or who they are friends with. I want HISD employees to feel secure in their jobs and not worry.
Thank you. Our next item held for registered speakers is E1, approval to increase the contract with TEA approved professional services providers for support of improvement required, formal improvement required, and a comprehensive schools during the 2018-2019 school year. First, we have Jonathan David Zapeta, and then we have Brian Harrison after that. Jonathan David Zapeta. Not here. Moving on. Brian Harrison, followed by Mark Kazansky.
Once again, I'm Brian Harrison from Socialist Alternative. The LA teachers' strike will go into its 5th day tomorrow. And make no mistake, they are fighting against privatization. Union leader Arlene Inouye explains, this is a struggle to save public education. The existence of public education in our city is on the line. And so it is here in Houston. It's all part of the same coordinated attack against public education nationwide. We understand that. The real question is, what are we going to do about it? The LA Teachers Union president says they want to end public education as we know it. They're ambitious, so we must be ambitious too. Now, a lawsuit against the state can be a good way to delay the privatization process and focus our fight back against the state for a period of time. We need a lawsuit. But it's going to take more than, frankly, pushing paper to beat these bullies at their game. Ultimately, school privatization is a political problem. And if places like Chicago, New York, and LA are any guide, it will take town halls, demonstrations, teacher and student walkouts. In short, it will take a movement against privatization to win. And where will the board stand as this movement grows? I am encouraged by the op-ed in the paper and some of your recent votes, but you must stand up to the state more strongly. We can't justify the recapture payment while our schools are under threat of being taken away from us. Fight back. Everyone hates the STAR test, and it drives our neighborhood schools down a path of closure and charters. Fight back, because the stakes are serious, and the fight to save our schools must be serious too. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next registered speaker is Mark Kazansky, and I apologize, this is the first time I'm seeing the names, followed by Jane Frio. You're also registered for Hearing the Citizens.
The community is here to make it clear. We don't want to lose democratic control of our schools. We oppose privatization or state takeover. No to charters, no to partnerships, mayor coalition, or TEA-approved campus intervention teams. We saw an attempt to take public schools and turn them over to unelected individuals for private profit. It's an attack on all of us who try to work for a living by people who try to exploit us. In California, public and charter school teachers are striking together to save public education from the charter creep. In Houston, we are ready to fight too. The people from the community in this room know. This is a fight we can win. Houston teachers have the tools. Strike, walk out, whatever action they decide to take, the people of Houston will be there to support them. The HISD board must decide, whose side are you on? Fight privatization, fight the state takeover, fight HB 1842, which forces unfair testing and punitive sanctions on students who are still recovering from the hurricane. Fight the systematic underfunding of black and brown schools in a district that sends millions of dollars to the state. Quality free education for all children in public schools is as vital as the abolition of child labor, and Houston is ready to fight for it.
Thank you. Next we have Jane Frio, followed by Sam Smith, followed by Dawn Haley. You're also registered for Hearing the Citizens?
Yes, okay. I'm on K1. Yes. K1. Okay. Good evening. We appreciate the effort and the good work of the Special Education Ad Hoc Committee and the members of this board that served on that committee that advised you for over 17 months and helped create a new policy that you will be voting on tonight. The policy that ensures that special education has a voice on every campus. This approval of this policy will ensure that special education representation is on the Shared Decision Making Committee, SDMC. In this decentralized model that we have here in HISD, principals are the ultimate leaders of their campus, but they don't work alone. They are required to be responsive to parents and the community in the decision-making process. And we all, parents, educators, administrators, and this board, we need to commit to holding our SDMCs accountable to meaningful improvement. And while we're at it, can we make sure that every campus has a functioning SDMC, perhaps as part of the HISD performance audit? I would like to remind this board and this community that there is still a very real special education crisis in this district and in the state of Texas. HISD, although making strides, is still under-identifying, underserving, underestimating, and under-including students with disabilities. And that is likely not going to change anytime soon, and certainly won't change without leadership from this board. But this policy change is a good first step to assure parents in this community that changes in special education are coming. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Sam Smith, followed by Don Haley, followed by Larry McKenzie.
Good afternoon, board members and superintendent. Consultants do not touch a student life on a daily basis. A consultant do not teach students what they need to know on a daily basis. Consultant do not be a mom or dad when a child needs one. So why would you hire a consultant to raise test scores when we need more teachers in the classrooms? We could take that money and put more resources in our school, and our school will have to be on the closure. So let's work together. Don't hire a consultant, hire more teachers, and put money back in classrooms. Thank you.
Next, Don Haley, followed by Larry McKenzie. Is Don here? Mr. McKenzie, you're up.
Know the closures, know the TEA, know the partnerships. You need to sue TEA. Today I came as a teacher, so I wore my badge so I can get in without getting frisked and searched. But as they were asking the questions to Dr. Lathan about how did those margins improve or widen or shorten, I would challenge that the people that are taking the data, which is supposed to be data-driven, that it would correlate between the reduction in force for the last 2 years. Please take a look at that data and notice that the teachers that were released from those different communities and the at-risk communities seem to do even look at that data and correlate it to what's going on. So you can ask her all the questions and everything, but if you don't know what's going on in the schools and the teachers that were let go, then you see why those margins are what they are. You're not taking everything for granted. Y'all are looking for a new superintendent, and you're going around to the communities, but you're not coming and speaking to the teachers. I am a teacher. I'm an educator. We do the things that you want us to do. We're the wheels that touch the ground. All you do is you make the protocol and do everything else. Why don't you reach out to us? And for those that were teachers before, I'm still waiting, like I was waiting on Miss Eastman to come to the school that I work at. I'm waiting on Miss Santos to come to the school that I work at. I'm waiting on all the other trustees to visit the schools and make that approach for the new superintendent. Now, at first, I wasn't even on Miss Dr. Lathan's side. But guess what? Now she feels just like I do. You know, hey, ready to get fired anytime, whenever the board meets. You don't know what's going to happen. So now she's cut her whip. But if you bring somebody in here that's not from HISD or hadn't cut that you asked for.
Thank you, Mr. McKenzie. Our next item held for registered speakers is I-2, approval of current and anticipated donations for district-wide and school-specific programs and authorization to negotiate, execute, and amend necessary contracts associated with these donations. Our first speaker is Ms. Sarah Becker, also registered for Hearing a Citizen.
Ben was supposed to be registered for B2 or B1.
I don't see him for B1
or B2. E1? E1, sorry.
E1?
Mm-hmm. Didn't you say for who?
No. I don't see him registered.
Did you get a call?
He's on the back.
He's on Hearing the Citizens? Right? He's not in there in agenda item.
I'll do, it's fine, I'll do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So we celebrate that this board is standing with the community in favor of community-controlled schools, but that's only the beginning.
I understand now that the focus and hope of this board is now shifting to praying that these schools can raise their test scores high enough so that you all get to keep your jobs. So I ask you, what kind of environment does that create for kids, for our kids? Any system that puts whether taxpayers get to keep their democracy on the backs of 8- and 9-year-old children is unjust and must be challenged. We must go the extra step and challenge the system. The problem with test-based accountability is that it puts the question, what will raise test scores above what is best for kids? We must change this so our amazing, dedicated teachers and principals have the freedom to meet the needs of our kids. I wanted to speak on item I2 because you are slated to approve a couple of high-dollar donations from PTOs with high concentrations of affluent families who can afford to give thousands of dollars to their schools. My kids' school cannot do this. Teachers at my kids' school are being forced to fundraise for field trips, which should be a non-negotiable, while other campuses are literally hiring extra staff with their money. These problems are deep and they require courage to tackle. These unjust systems come from both the state and here at the local level. We need you all to find the courage to start breaking down any system that isn't serving all kids.
Thank you. Our next item held for registered speakers is J1, consideration and approval of continuing contract teaching fields for reduction in force. Our first speaker is Brian Hostetler. Thank you.
Thank you. So, it's really easy to raise test scores. First, I'll privatize a school. Then I'll reject special education students and programs. Then I'll expel the troubled students. I can even outprice lower-income students by charging for things like expensive uniforms. Test scores go up that way. I can even lower your costs by hiring uncertified teachers at half the price. This is what charter schools do to raise their scores, and it's very easy to do. And it's an easy way to make money. Why do you think the Waltons, who pay their employees so little, pay so much to some of you to charter schools? But we didn't vote for you to make easy decisions. We voted for you to make the right decisions. To those who voted against privatization last month, thank you for looking out for all the kids. To those who didn't, please reconsider.
Next, we have our next item held for registered speakers is K1, proposed revisions to board policy, BQB local planning and decision-making process, campus level. First reading, first speaker registered for this and also registered for hearing the citizen is Joshua Rottenberg.
Good evening. Take a moment to look at the websites of the schools in your districts to see where you can find the special ed programs. Where do you see the kids who belong or who go to some of the special ed programs? Where do you see the teachers? It's very, very hard to find. Then you'll see why you need to have special ed representation on the planning boards. The representation and accountability has to start by coming into the light. Just pick a school. It doesn't matter where. You won't find them. So thank you for entertaining this policy tonight. And the only aspect that I would ask you to add to it would be to demand some accountability reports. And as was mentioned, when do these committees meet? Who's on the committee? How many people are actually on the committee? Because from the numbers that have been published about the amount of students who are in HISD, we've gone down even in the last 5-6 years. And if you look at the absolute numbers of where the students are, if the national average of special ed representation in schools is 13%, and we're just over 7%, that means there are 10,000 kids in the Houston area that are not in HISD schools. Where are those 10,000 children? The other item I was going to speak to about hearing of citizens has to do with hiring the board certified behavior analysis, BCBA. We talked about this on the special ed committee. There are posted advertisements right now to hire BCBAs. one thing I'll note is that the top salary that's offered on there, and I'm not a BCBA, is actually the lowest part of the lowest salary range of community offerings for BCBAs. You will not attract qualified candidates at that level. So I ask you, 2 years after this discussion came up on the ad hoc committee, why? What does that message does that say? When the number of kids with autism in the district has skyrocketed, there's 66% increase even in the last 5-6 years. What message does that send? Thank you for your service. Thank you for taking care of our kids and the staff and everyone in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next agenda, Mr. Ben Becker, your name was left off accidentally, so you are registered for E1 if you want to come forward now. And E1 is approval to increase the contract with TA-approved professional services providers for supportive improvement required, formal improvement required, and comprehensive schools during the 2018-2019 school year.
Thank you. Trustees, I want to echo the community here tonight that is continuing to demand that you fight the TEA, not partner with them. I want to speak to a particular issue. Several times over the course of you hiring or separating from superintendents, I've noted the conflict of interest that your board council has by representing both the administration and you. Tonight I want to talk about an additional conflict that is keeping you from even getting independent, unbiased counsel on how to move forward with fighting the TEA. Thompson and Horton, David Thompson, your main board counsel, Ms. Lisa Brooks, sitting here tonight, represent many other school districts. They fight on the same side in lawsuits with the TEA. They're lobbyists. You hire them to lobby on your behalf. They are in no position to tell you whether or how to fight the TEA. The State Bar of Texas Professional Ethics, Rule 1.06, Conflict of Interest. A lawyer shall not represent a person if that representation of that person involves a substantially related matter in which that person's interests are materially or directly adverse to the interests of another client. And even if that conflict doesn't exist, point 2 in the same rule, if it reasonably appears to be adversely limiting that lawyer's advice. Stop listening to David Thompson and your current board counsel on how to deal with the TEA when they're coming for you. And you can't wait until August and see how schools do. You need to be putting a legal strategy in place right now so that when they come for your seats, you have a plan. And the lawyer sitting there and David Thompson cannot provide you that advice. Do your fiduciary responsibility and get independent counsel on this matter. Thank you.
Our final item held for registered speakers is K2, proposed revisions to board policy, BDB local, board internal organization, board committees, second reading. Ms. Sarah Terrell, also registered for hearing of citizens.
There is no more important group in an organization than the internal audit department. How they are organized is of vital importance to their independence and effectiveness. Last summer, I met with Debbie Fincher, the head of ethics and compliance. I brought her a series of complaints about Kinder HSPVA and the highly irregular financial relationship it has with the fundraising group HSPVA Friends. Wholesale FERPA violations occurred when online student registration forms were data scraped for personal information by Friends. HSPVA Friends had diverted hundreds of thousands of dollars over the last few years, collecting all school performance ticket sales, student supply fees, and fees for out-of-town field trips. Eventually, Ms. Fincher reported that the school principal, Scott Allen, would work with HSPVA Friends to get misdirected funds returned. Before she left her HISD position in December, she told me that $110,000 was returned to the school activity fund. Mr. Blackwell assured me today that a full audit will be performed and a report will be issued, and that the $110,000 will be reviewed for sufficiency. What may have been only an informal review now merits an audit that will see the light of day. My complaints indicated a highly irregular financial activity with an outside entity benefiting financially, while the school's principal looked on with approval. Yes, I would say that does merit a real audit. I was disturbed to hear that Ms. Fincher's position as head of ethics and compliance has been moved from the internal audit department to legal, eliminating her independence and ability to report directly to the audit committee. And of course, so much in legal is hidden under the black cloak of privilege. We need more light in here, not less.
Thank you. That concludes our registered speakers for agenda item. I'm going to be leaving the meeting early. My grandmother passed away, and I have got to catch a 2-hour flight. So I'm going to ask our first Vice President, Ms. Villaseca, to fill in.
All right, consideration of the superintendent's agenda items. We have heard all speakers to agenda items. We are now ready to move on to the business agenda. For the record, let it be reflected that agenda items A3, B4, B5, J3, and K2 and attachments to items A3, B4, J3, and K2 were added after the agenda was printed. Agenda items B2, I2, I3, and J3 and attachments to I2, I3, and J3 were revised. Board policy requires trustees to excuse themselves and abstain from all discussion and votes pertaining to contracts that might involve a conflict of interest. As defined in Board Policy BBFA Local, a conflict of interest is any circumstance that could cast doubt on a trustee's ability to act with total objectivity with regard to the district's interests. Starting with the trustee to my far right and continuing left, would each trustee state any agenda items he or she wants held for separate discussion, and also state any agenda item for which the trustee will abstain on the basis of conflict of interest requirements, which will also be held for separate discussion. Starting from my right, Trustee Adams, do you have any items you wish to hold for discussion and or abstain?
No items to be held and no abstention.
Okay, Trustee Skillen-Jones?
B5.
Any abstentions?
No.
Okay. All right. Trustee Dygard?
Hold B1 and B2, no abstentions.
Trustee Santos?
No abstentions, no, nothing else.
Okay. Trustee Jones?
No and no.
Trustee Sung?
B4 and no abstentions.
Trustee Lita?
No abstentions. Item E1.
And no and no from yourself. So items to be held are B1, B2, B4, B5, and E1. And there are no abstentions. We will now consider items held for discussion by board members. Our first item held for discussion is agenda item B1.
So I had requested that this be placed on an agenda last fall.
May I have a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. I move we consider.
Right?
Okay. This agenda item.
Second. Okay.
So I asked the board president at the time last fall to put this on the agenda. Board members can host Lone Star governance trainings, other meetings for the community, as individuals or subsets, as long as we don't violate the Open Meetings Act. I saw merit in doing this so the public can understand what we are talking about. It also provides an opportunity for the public, to share their thoughts about governance and our work as well. The reason I asked for it to be on the agenda is, in the spirit of if the board is, engaging in Lone Star governance and, we have this rubric of different points, that we could have it as a board sanctioned training. However, I'm of the belief that any model of governance is only going to be effective for our school district and our school board if all of us want to act as a body corporate towards that end. Therefore, any board member who wants to do this could still choose to do this, whether it passes or fails. However, I am going to make a motion that this item is postponed indefinitely.
Postpone indefinitely goes away. B1. Second. Second. Okay. B1.
It's not coming back. If somebody wants to bring it back, I can.
Do I need to restate it?
Council has to be audible to the public in a public meeting. No Open Meetings Act.
I was just clarifying that she wanted to postpone it indefinitely versus, I'm sorry that you couldn't hear me.
Okay. Okay. Yep. So, do we have a second? We have a second. Please vote.
This is vote to postpone it indefinitely. Right?
Yes. Seven, 4-0 against 0 abstain. The motion passes.
Was only still. One absent.
One absent. Should we mark him absent? Oh, he's not.
Two absent. There's two absent.
Okay. 7-4, 0 against 0 abstain, 2 absent. Thank you. Okay, our next item held for discussion is agenda item B2. Okay.
I move that.
Do we have a motion?
I move that we consider agenda item B2.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any comments or questions from my colleagues? B2. Okay. Trustee Dygard?
I move that the board identify and consider specific individuals to serve as the board's coach to assist the board with Lone Star governance and related governance and team building matters, and make a selection by the board's February regular meeting.
Second. Do we have a second?
I'd like to offer a friendly amendment. Instead of saying Lone Star governance, can we just say board with governance and other governance and team buildings? So we adopt, it can be CRSS, it could be whatever type of governance that we as a collective body actually agree to.
Second.
And if I just may clarify that what you're voting on is the friendly amendment first. If that passes, then you'll vote on the main motion that Trustee Dygard made.
Okay. Please vote.
Okay. sorry, I'm confused. What are we voting on?
Voting to use any kind of governance, but
Not just
not
one
just
side.
LSG.
Oh, let's go. All right.
Trustee Lewis.
Okay. The motion passes. We have 8-4, 0 against, 0 abstentions, 1 absent. Now we have to go back to the original motion.
As amended.
As amended. All right, vote. Please vote.
It's got to be clear.
Has to be clear.
Make sure it's clear.
Okay. 8-4, 0 against, 0 abstentions, 1 absent. Okay. Our next item held for discussion will be B4. Okay. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Are there any comments or questions from my colleagues?
So some of this data we've been working through and was just updated in our binders very recently in the last couple of days because we've had a transition in leadership in our board services. And welcome, by the way, to Ms. Jones. Very happy to have you on board. So I'd like to move that we postpone consideration of this item to a week from today, which would be January 24th, for consideration at our hearings.
Second.
Please vote. Sit here. Sit here. Okay. Motion passes 8-4, 0 against. The amendment passes 0-4, 0 against, 0 abstentions, 1 absence. All right. Our next item held for discussion is item B5. May I have a motion?
Motion to consider item B5.
Wait, do we have a B5? Oh,
B5.
yeah.
There is a B5.
That was yours.
Yeah.
Who doesn't have one?
What is B5? That was yours. Oh, she's going to
Have a B5?
I don't have a B5 on my I don't have any B5.
I have it. They updated it today, so they
Okay.
go to the
It's
books
not-
in the
it's
house.
It's not in the binder?
Yeah, I don't have one.
Okay. Yeah, that's the last one. Okay, do my colleagues have a copy of B5? It's not on our agenda, but it is being, and it has just been passed around by Veronica Mabasa. Okay. It is on the screen so the audience can go ahead and see what this item is. It's consider and approve addendum to superintendent search contract with HYA for additional community engagement. All right. Do we have any speakers to this agenda item? Trustee.
So we're just doing it. Do we have a second to the motion?
So moved. Okay. Second. Okay.
Need a motion to consider item.
Yep, okay. There we go. Let's go ahead and discuss. Trustee Adams is in the queue.
Thank you. On item B5, I just have a couple of questions for it, if I may. I don't have my glasses, I can't even see. On B5, for this particular increase for the contract for community engagement meetings, I'm really concerned because when we originally had our meetings, it was 9 meetings, and that was agreed upon for the original contract because we had some concerns about the budget, because at first we was getting clarity on whether or not the additional search was free, but then we understood that we had to pay for expenses, that we didn't have to pay for expenses or anything like that. So at the end of the day, I'm concerned because I noticed when the original list went out, I see that there are several trustees are hosting double meetings or 3 meetings, and I was not aware that we can hold 2 meetings. My understanding that it was just 1. And so this trustee right here, was not aware because I see on here, unless this is the old one, where it says January 15th, I guess that was a double host. That was Trustee Dygard. Then I see on Wednesday, January the 16th, I guess that's a meeting that's shared between Trustee Dygard and Ann Sung. And then I see where there are, Ann Sung is holding another one. So I guess you all are sharing meetings, but we was only have 9, and I think this is 15. So I'm just trying to be clarifying for me. So with the additional questions, because I didn't know that we can throw in an extra meeting, because I thought it was only 9 from the original.
Mr. Dimitro is here for a set amount of days. We did not allocate $20,000 for a set of meetings, but a span of 2 weeks, and it was 9 days in those 2 weeks where there were time slots, and I believe Ms. Mabasa went around to each trustee to fill in your time slot. So if you could maximize that time, and you can use.
He just told me that the other day when he was at our meeting that we can just add additional. But I'm just concerned about the additional $20,000 that's allocated for when we originally said.
No, we originally said it was $75,000 to allocate it, and now we only need $20,000 for it. We're not going to utilize the full $75,000.
Right. So the question is that I did not get the opportunity because when Veronica called, she only said you have 1 opportunity.
No,
so
it was a blank slate, and it was a blank slate, and you went around and filled out the thing, and it was offered.
No disrespect, Santos. I'm talking to the chair.
I am the chair of the Superintendent Search Committee.
I'm talking to the chair. Go ahead. I mean, no disrespect. I mean, I didn't think we nominated the chair because I'm on the same committee, but go ahead. All right. I'm just trying to just get an understanding, please.
As far as the expenditure for this item?
No. When were allowed, because I only got a call just for 1 meeting, because my community was asking, can we have like a second meeting, and I was not made aware of the second one, because when Ms. Abasa called me, she gave me 2 dates. She said you can pick this date or this date, and I picked 1 date. Was not aware that I can host 2 within that period. I met with the High Representative the other day, and at that particular point, he stated if you would like to host a second meeting, you can. He made that opportunity available the other day, but I would have loved to have that because then he said that I can only host it during the day because those are the only times that he had available. So I wish that I would have known, this trustee would have known that, and being a part of the search committee, not being engaged or informed when the original phone call came. So that's the only thing that I'm just saying. That's just my particular comment on that, because I would have, at the very beginning, I would have hosted 2 meetings and not 1, because the district is so big.
You're right.
And I would have done that in different diversities, been in that community for almost 20-some years. So normally when I do stuff, I do 1 on one side, and I would have known that I would have loved to share a meeting with Dygard on the south side, and things like that. So I'm just making just my comment on that. But I invited people to go to her meetings that live on the other side if they didn't want to come in the Hiram Clark community.
Right. I'm going to defer to Trustee Santos, who's also in the queue.
I'm done.
Who can speak to this item?
I'm done.
Okay.
I'm concluded. Thank you.
Thank
you can go
you.
to the next speaker.
Thank you. I know that Trustee Skillen-Jones usually sits here.
And she actually held the item. I thought she was in first, and I didn't know I.
So go ahead and speak, Trustee. Thank you.
So my concern was
I have had a problem with paying an additional $75,000 or $20,000 because the agreement that we signed when we did the initial search was that if a superintendent left before 2 years, that this search will be free. And I made that very clear that I had a problem with this. I don't know how my name ended up on this agenda item as the person that put it there, because this is definitely was not a board president item. I don't know who put it there, but I'd like for them to make that correction because the president did not put this item on the agenda, and I was adamantly opposed to paying for something that was supposed to be free.
Okay. Would you like to defer to me?
Yes. Okay, I would like to defer to Trustee Sanchez, who is helping to lead the search committee through this work, and it sounds like she has some responses.
The addendum was posted here because for some reason or another, the contract sat unsigned since September 18th, or when we had that special meeting. So that contract was sat on somebody's desk unsigned, and that is why this addendum is here. From my understanding, and David is not here, he sent it out multiple times, and it was never signed by whomever needed to sign it. So this again, it was a very rushed process because the contract was sat on. So what happened is that we had that limited amount of time, and we would have liked for all of this to be done before we went off to break, but because that contract went unsigned, we had to rush this when we got back from break.
So my objection was not the time frame or that this addenda item my objection is that my name is on it and it was not a president originated item, and when we talked about
he was waiting for your signature and he said that he finally got your signature to go ahead on it, and you were the president at the time. That's what David said. Now he's not here for clarification, so I don't know.
Waiting for my signature on what?
On the addendum.
I signed everything that was put before me, so I'm going to have to take exception to that because I didn't sit on anybody's contract, and if it was sitting on my desk, I don't work here. I have a full-time job, so they need to notify me when I need to come sign something. But again, this was not a president-generated item, and either trustees can put it on there or the administration can, but I want my name removed from it officially.
Lisa,
what would be the next steps, given the concern that our colleagues have talked about?
Sorry, my mic keeps charging off. It's my understanding that the original item that the board approved for the main contract said up to $75. That was not an amount of money that the board anticipated spending. It's just that second search, the services were free, but the direct costs to the vendor are payable by the district. So that was a placeholder up to $75. As a part of that main contract, it's my understanding that the board, at its option, if it wanted to redo the community engagement process from 2 years ago, not rely on the community engagement that was done 2 years ago, but to update that would be a flat fee cost of $20,000. Now, I believe that was discussed perhaps at the December board meeting or the November board meeting. So we have a main contract, HYA contract, authorizing the second search that needs to be executed. And if the board has decided that it wants to do additional community engagement and not rely on the community engagement that was done 2 years ago, that's a flat fee of $20,000. That would be an addendum to the base contract, and both of them need to be executed.
Okay, I have an additional question. Was that spelled out in the original contract, or did they decide that after the fact?
It was spelled out in the base. Well, which original contract? The original contract
that we signed 2 years ago. Did they say if there is any additional engagement, we have to pay any money?
It is not my understanding that 2 years ago, if that they specified that additional community engagement would cost $20,000. That's what was specified in the contract this time around. You're correct, Trustee Jones. Gillen Jones.
So legally, what's the next step here, Ms. McBride? So are we going to just put it to the next president's?
We can vote on it. I just want, in the official record, my name removed from that. And if the trustees want to put it on or the administration wants to put it on, that's fine. But I do not want my name on something that I think is contractually wrong.
So we have several other members in the queue to speak. We're going to go ahead and Trustee Dygard's next.
Thank you. So it was my understanding when we voted to enter into this contract last fall that we would incur expenses, but the fee was waived, and that we voted that expenses, and those expenses are like travel expenses for candidates to come interview, that expenses would not exceed $75,000. And so this is probably a question for legal. Is this $20,000 part of that $75,000, or is it in addition to that $75,000?
The placeholder with respect to the original contract, or the contract for the second search, that $75,000 was just a placeholder for any expenses that would be incurred, because the fees were going to be free for the services. This additional $20,000, if the board decides to do community engagement, could be within that 75 or could not be. We just don't know what the fees are going to be, because if the board, separate and apart from the community engagement, requires the search firm to come to the district multiple times, like more than the 10 times in the contract, those fees continue to add up. So I don't want to say that it's within the 75, because the board determines that by how many times they have the search firm come to the district.
Legally, we approved up to $75,000 for the process of searching for a new superintendent. So we shouldn't be going over that for any reason.
That $75,000, that is in your agenda item as holding a place in your budget. That is not in the contract. The contract just said
I get that. Okay. I get that. So two other comments. One is, I have a problem with our board putting an item on the agenda after agenda review. I think it is not a good practice for us as a board, but I also think it is unfair to the community. And I hope through the course of this year, we were in a bad habit of it last year, that this is the end of that bad habit moving forward. And then finally, regarding the meetings, I think there is a valid concern about making sure that every community in Houston has equitable access to any community meetings that are held, and that they are evenly distributed, and the quantity of them evenly distributed throughout our district. I think that is fair. I don't think, if there's only one over here and there's 12 over there, and someone on this part of town can't go to that one and can't really access the other side of town, I do think that's something that we should consider, the possibility of adding more community meetings, if that's a need for the community.
How do I get this back to the home screen so I can see who's in the queue?
She'll clear it. Okay, let's see.
Thank you. We have two more people in the queue. The screen's frozen right here. So Trustee Jones, go ahead. Thank you.
So I was here with the last superintendent search, and Hyatt told us free is free. So these details about having to pay for extra community meetings, that's just a flat-out untruth. So, so I didn't want to have a superintendent search anyway, because I think we have the superintendent we needed. But apart from that, I have had 2 community meetings, and I was told that that's how many I could have. In fact, at my Sterling community meeting, and I think there were some people here who were at that, Mr. Dimitro said that. Now, when I called him on it, because I was on the radio on, I don't know, whenever the next day was after the meeting, because when I went on the website, I wanted to tell people how to be able to participate if they wanted to. I looked and I saw, and I'm only bringing this up because I know that I was told that I could only have 2. I saw 4 for Trustee Santos. And then I found out about one that the public wasn't invited to on January 22nd at the Vara Center that Trustee Lyra Santos and Davila had, and it's supposed to be for Latino elected officials. So I was feeling real salty because I was told too. So when I called Mr. Dimitro, however you say his last name, Then he started waffling, and I said, it's not fair if the superintendent search is going to be taking comment from the public, and they're handing out public, the little worksheets, that some trustees have the opportunity to have 4 meetings and potentially get more people to sign or participate than others. It's just not fair. But I was given the times to choose from. I had 3 days. I had to pick 2. One was started at 6, I think either 6 or 7, I don't remember, but it was one of those, because I was told by him that we could have one in the evening, and then the other 2 dates where I could choose one, I was given 1 to 4 in the afternoon. And I said, the people that my constituents are working from 1 to 4, they can't come. And Trustee Skillen Jones was nice enough to trade with me so that I could have another one in the evening. But I absolutely, after I found out some of my colleagues had 3 more meetings than I had, I want my 3 more meetings. I don't think we should have to pay for them because HYA said it was supposed to be free. I don't care what they're saying now, and even the lawyer said that. That they don't know if they talked about it, but that was one of their selling points in getting us to pick them over all of the search firms that were applying to do the search. In fact, I think they were the only search firm that said if they leave, then we get a free second one. And so I know that factored heavily into my decision to pick them. So all this later comes stuff, and again, I have a problem because I need for legal to explain everything to us, not just things that are going to push us in a direction. But I also believe that the meeting should be public. So I didn't realize that we were having meetings where the public wasn't invited.
Thank you, Trustee Jones. We have Wanda in the queue again, but that would be your second time. Trustee Sung has not spoken yet, so go ahead, Trustee Sung.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'd just like to share my perspective on this. I don't think I've shared this with my colleagues. So, I wasn't here in the last search. And HYA did offer to do a free search, like if you don't like what you get, you can, if it doesn't work out, you can have another search for free, but I believe that it said, minus expenses, right? And so to me, what's reasonable is if you need a new search within a year, the HYA would offer to do that search. Of course, we have to pay expenses because it costs time for them to fly people down here, et cetera. It costs money to run a meeting, make copies, et cetera. And then the other reason why I think that, the community input, which is very important, right? And so much has changed in HISD. It was important to me that we do the community input. But we wouldn't have known that necessarily when we engaged HYA the first time, right? So to me, that's why it's reasonable for them to say, look, if we're going to do another one in a year, we would update the superintendent profile. But we're asking for extra. We're saying, no, it's not okay for us to just have conversations between trustees and the search firm to update the profile. It's important that we go to the community, right? And that is what we promised when we engaged in the search, that we would do it with fidelity. We would have the search that needs to be done. And if we have to pay for it, folks, then I think you need to pay for it. $20,000 is not a lot compared to what we pay the superintendent each year. It's not a lot compared to our budget. I know it feels like a lot of money, but this is the most important decision we do as a board, and I think it's important we do it with fidelity. And by the way, they're already doing the work. We signed a contract saying we would pay them. I think they just want assurance that we're going to stand by our word. So this is about standing by our word to the community, that when we say we're going to do a search with fidelity and that your voice matters, that we mean that. And this means that we need to pay up, right? Because that's what we signed in the contract. So I urge my colleagues to consider that in this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Sung. Trustee Lira hasn't had the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Madam Vice President and Interim Superintendent Dr. Layton. One thing just to clarify something really quick. Some of us were not here the previous 2 superintendents, and we know what the outcome was. So it's really important that if we're going to do this, that we have transparency we have community input, we have students' voices, and we give everyone the opportunity for them to be heard. And I think that is very important. But I just want to clarify that, yes, we decided to coordinate a community meeting, but it states right here that it's a community leaders meeting with 3 trustees. And the reason for that is that we also want to have that opportunity to consolidate and perhaps reduce costs, so therefore we're able to get a maximum amount of folks there at one time, because it's such an important decision. But nowhere here that we mention any group of ethnicity. We want everyone welcome in our districts. So I just wanted to clarify that. But I want all the stakeholders out there in the community to be involved, to come, to have a voice. And so therefore, I just wanted to clarify that for you guys out there. And if we can save money, the better.
Thank you, Trustee Lira. We're going to go ahead for the second round of comments. And Trustee Adams?
Thank you so much. So we scheduled these meetings at these particular schools, and the schools incurred costs for us to host the meetings there. Custodial, security, police, that is coming out of that budget that they was not prepared for. So my question is, are we going to reimburse those schools back for the dollars that was... You're looking for something? I'm sorry. I don't know where it is. It's gone. I'm sorry, Rhonda. Are we going to reimburse those individuals, those principals back? Because this is something that we scheduled. And so this has put a strain on those principals' budgets to hire like 3 and 4 police officers, custodial staff for those nights. So I would like to see what we're going to do to make sure that those dollars be returned back to those campuses. Because if we're going to overload them with these meetings and after hours or something that's not theirs, I think we need to compensate them. The other thing is, we're talking about hearing from the community. Now, one time have I heard this board say we need to hear from the principals and the teachers. We have not said that. So I want to know, have we hosted a community meeting or a principals meeting to hear from our principals, to see what our principals have to say about the search? Because we're leaving them out. We haven't had a teachers meeting to say, teachers, give them the opportunity. And if not, I would like to host one during the day, since they say I have another day available, and I know we don't supposed to pull them, but I want to hear what our principals have to say. I want to know what my teachers have to say about this search, and we have excluded them. I have not heard that conversation around this table. And so we need to know what our principals think about this search, because they're the ones that's doing the work. So that's something that I would like to state. And also, when it comes to going back to the meetings, and I'll talk to Ms. Veronica about that, I think that when we set the message out, when people, it's going back, and I hope when we move forward, my time's going to get out. Never mind. I'm going to be respectful of time.
Thank you, Trustee Adams. Trustee Skiller-Jones?
So I wanted to make sure council got into the records that I'd like my name removed from that item.
So do we just make a motion to strike the name off? How do we need to go there?
I don't have to have y'all vote on it.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Secondly, this meeting that you just talked about, Trustee Jones, is that a publicly posted meeting? Was it listed for everybody to be able to attend? Is it on the list?
I'm just going to respond to it for the second round.
I think it is. I'm not sure. I think it is.
It's not on the website.
Is it on the website?
It's not on the website. It's not. It's not on the website.
Okay, so if we're being transparent, then all the meetings need to be on the website. If we're going to talk about transparency, because there should be no secret meetings. People should be able to attend all the meetings. They should be posted. I don't think there should be any secret meetings where the public is not allowed to attend.
What day was it?
I don't know what day it is because I didn't see it.
What date was that meeting, Dr. Lira? May I ask?
January 22nd, Tuesday.
Is this upcoming Tuesday? Okay, so the meeting has not occurred yet.
No, there's one here.
It's on that's what I'm saying, just 22nd. That's what I was looking at.
The one Tuesday, January 22nd at 6 p.m. is
I was gonna
Chavez High School?
No, the Chavez one is the state community. There's another one.
It's only.
That's the only one on the 22nd.
That's the one I saw, 22nd.
Okay, so I'm requesting that every meeting be publicly posted for anybody to be able to attend.
Absolutely, I agree.
Thank you. Trustee Santos?
Thank you, Trustee Vilaseca. So a lot of what the public doesn't know is that what we do is a volunteer position. So some of us can work a little bit more on this position or we can't. So if we're putting in the legwork with policy committee meetings, audit committee meetings, we're here for a closed session. Not everybody can be here. I understand that everybody has jobs, but we did offer this opportunity for everyone to maximize every hour, every minute of this search, and it was put out there. It was after a closed session. Ms. Mubasa came in. She offered it to all the trustees at the same time. And so, additionally, because of the fast turnaround time, we haven't been able, and I know I'd communicated with Ms. Mubasa, why haven't these meetings been published, yada, 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 because there is a teachers meeting at Heights High School on January 23rd at 5 p.m. where teachers and principals are invited, and that hasn't been published. Additionally, there is a student meeting that's being held up somewhere. I don't know what's going on with that. But what my point is this, it's like you put in what, you get out what you put in. So we've been there. We've been putting out these messages, and it's really hard without staff to put out and publish these meetings. So the community leaders meeting, all of this, it's hard. But we're making an effort to have authentic community engagement, and that's what's best for student outcomes, and that's what we're doing. Additionally, I'd like to call the question, please.
Okay, please vote on the call to question for this agenda item. B5, consider and approve addendum for superintendent search.
No.
Sorry. Okay, 5-4, 3 against, 1 absent. So we need to take a vote again?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Let's go ahead and vote on the agenda item. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Please vote. Right. Yes. The motion passes 5-4, 3 against, 0 abstain, 1 absent. Okay. The next item held for discussion is item E1. That's the approval to increase the contract with TEA-approved professional service providers for support of improvement required, and comprehensive schools during the 2018-2019 school year. Do I have a motion?
What number is this?
E1. E1. Will you please get E1 on? Thanks.
Make a motion to consider item E1.
Okay. Do I have a second? Are there any comments or questions from my colleagues? Okay, Trustee Santos?
Hi, Dr. Lathan. I know it's pretty critical of this agenda item in agenda review, and I just really need your professional opinion because we received the PSPs a little late, and just having to be able to process all that. We received the hours, the breakdowns, and the resumes. Just the time to process it's not been enough for me. So I'm going to ask for your professional opinion, Dr. Lathan. Is the $75,000 that we're going to pay to TEA employees, this additional, which will make it $275,000 to TEA employees, is this going to improve student outcomes and how?
Yes. First, we wouldn't put an item on the agenda if it was not going to improve student outcomes. At agenda review, the board requested information on each service provider, and that information was sent on Monday. So it detailed the different information. As we shared at agenda review, we have an initial contract. We're required, because we have IR and former IR campuses, to have service providers basically to provide support for our campuses. And so that is why we're requesting that those additional hours be added to the original contract. There's already a contract in existence that is paying those professional service providers. And like I said, I believe it's an agenda review. They have been in our district supporting us for about 4 or 5 years, if not longer now, because there was also another organization that was supporting us for a number of years.
Okay, so this will help support you and our students.
It supports our campuses because, like I said, part of the requirement, also they're required to upload detailed reports to the state on our individual school progress. Also those reports, and remember, you're required by law or statute to approve those target improvement plans. So I believe they were approved last October. Their responsibility per the state guidelines is to monitor our implementation on those plans. And then they are responsible for submitting to the state as whether or not we are following those plans. So if they, let's say, I guess future contracts are denied, then I guess we would find out from the state what would be the implication if we don't follow through.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Nathan.
Okay. Dr. Lida?
Thank you, Vice President Biaseca, and thank you, Madam Interim Superintendent, Dr. Layton. I was also a little bit kind of just needing more clarity on this item. That's why I pulled it. Where we sent a spreadsheet to the number of hours that were additionally needed. And, okay. The other thing was the rationale for, I know the original contract, was that satisfied in terms of the number of hours? The PSP folks were already involved with helping the schools.
So it varies from campus to campus, and if I'm wrong, Ms. Trim, please feel free to jump in. Because each campus and each PSP has a designated number of hours. Like I said, a few people have gone over those designated initial hours, and that's why we're asking for the addendum to the contract. Also, in the information that was sent to the board, we shared with the board the job description and the requirements for the PSPs. But like I said, there was a spreadsheet that had the PSP provider, had the number of hours, it had the campus. What else was on? I'm trying to think what else on that spreadsheet. I don't have it in front of me. Okay.
Yes, my concern is that, this is about, about the salary of a teacher and a half in some of these really critical needed schools and some content areas that have inexperienced teachers. My concern is more from an administrative perspective. There seems to be 5 layers of folks. Like you mentioned earlier that it's an extra set of eyes, but we're almost close to February, and we don't need to be diagnosing the problem now. However, I do see the urgency to do everything that we can because now we have limited options. But we have 5 layers of folks helping new teachers, predominantly in these schools. We have the PSP, we have the administrative team, we have the principal who oversees the instructional programs, we have the SSOs that go and make sure that folks are in compliance, and then we have the TDS, which means Teacher Development Specialist. The Teacher Development Specialist is the expert that goes in there and helps. So to continue more folks, more sets of eyes at this time of the year, I find it difficult to justify this expenditure.
Noted.
Do any of my colleagues have any other questions regarding this agenda item? Trustee Jones.
I have a question, Madam Superintendent. So, because of these rules that TEA has created, which the whole world knows I don't like them, the only people who can help us at the schools they've got to be TEA approved? Is that
For this requirement for the professional service providers, yes, they must be TEA approved for this component. When we have, based on the status of our district as it relates to the number of IR campuses that we've had over the past several years, even though we reduced those down, we're making progress, we're still required to meet these TEA mandates.
So we worked with people last year that we had to vote on.
Yes,
is that like the contract with those people who've helped us ends, and this contract has to pass for us to continue using them?
Just to continue the additional hours for the remainder of the school year. Once again, you voted on the contract last June for them to work in our schools. They're already on our campuses. This is so that we can provide additional hours. So they already have an existing contract. It's for additional hours.
Thank you.
Please vote. Thank you. We have 7 for, 0 against, 1 abstention, 1 absent. That concludes today's board agenda, and we are now ready to proceed with the hearing of citizens. Before we get to that part, though, are we ready to consider the balance of today's agenda? Do I have a motion to accept the balance of today's agenda by consensus?
Second.
Are there any comments or questions from my colleagues? Please vote. Okay. 8 for, 0 against, 0 abstentions, and 1 absent. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the agenda review meeting of January 7th, 2019, and the special meeting of January 12th, 2019?
Make the motion to accept the minutes.
Okay. Second. Please vote. Accepting approval of minutes from previous meetings?
From previous meetings or closed session?
Previous meetings. Okay. 8 for, 0 against, 0 abstentions, 1 absent. We are now ready to consider items discussed in executive session. Are there any motions?
Yes. If I can see them. I haven't. I'm very squint. You ready? All right. I move that the board authorize the district attorneys to file an appeal in the matters of the Houston Independent School District versus Chester Nichols in the 204th Issue District, Fort Bend County, Texas, case number 18 DCV-257904213 on the terms discussed in closed session, effective January 18, 2019.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Okay. 6 for, 0 against, 2 abstentions, 1 absent.
I move that the board authorize the district to settle the subrogation lien of Prentice Robinson against Maria Mariquin and Allstate Insurance for workers' compensation benefits, Allstate Insurance claim number 04910260035 on the terms discussed in closed session effective January 18, 2019.
Please vote. We have a second. Please vote. Okay. 6 for, 0 against, 2 abstentions, 1 absent.
I move that the board approve a finding of no good cause for educators to resign or abandon employment contracts within district consent under Section 21.105C, 21.160C, or 21.210C of the Texas Education Code that was discussed in closed session, and authorize the interim superintendent or her designee to submit a written complaint to SBEC to impose sanctions effective January 18, 2019.
Second. Please vote. Six, 4-0 against, 2 abstentions, 1 absent.
I move that the board approve the balance of the closed session personnel agenda, including specifically the board approve proposed terminations of continuing term and probationary contract except Reed Richards, and authorize the interim superintendent or her designee to provide notice of the same. And the board approves separation and release agreements and withdraw contract recommendations as discussed in closed session, effective January 18, 2019.
Is there a second? Please vote.
Oh, I can vote on that one. Sorry.
6-4-0
I
against.
need to change. I can vote yes on that one.
How do you change it? Okay, we need to read it? Okay, please vote.
Thank you.
7-4-0 against, 1 abstention, and 1 absent.
I move that the board approve the sale of surplus property at 5650 Selinsky Road, Houston, Texas 77048 on the terms discussed in closed session effective January 18, 2019.
We have a second? Second. Please vote.
I move that
7-4-0 against, 1 abstention, 1 absent.
I move that the board approve the sale of surplus property at 5426 Cavalcade Street, Houston, Texas 77026 on the terms discussed in closed session effective January 18, 2019.
We have a second? Please vote. Seven, 4-0 against, 1 abstention, and 1 absent.
I move that the board enters into a final order to terminate the term contract of Reed Richards effective January 18, 2019.
Second, do we have a second? Second. Please vote. Six, 4-0 against, 2 abstentions, 1 absent. Do we have any other motions?
That concludes all motions.
That concludes all motions. All right, now we're going to go ahead and conclude today's board agenda, and we're now ready to proceed with the hearing of citizens. Any citizen who desired to appear before the Board of Education should have registered and filed an application with board services by 9:30 a.m. today. The deadline to submit handout materials was also at that time. I'd like to remind speakers that when addressing the board, please stay on topic and refrain from naming individuals, especially students, as they are protected under the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. However, naming your own child is permissible in the course of stating your concern. Please understand that the public forum does not allow for dialogue with board members. The board cannot deliberate or respond directly to a speaker in this format. The clock on the wall to your right will count down your time and will signal when your time is up. We have 15 registered hearing of citizens speakers. Speakers during the hearing of citizens shall be limited to 1 minute each and cannot pass his or her time to another speaker. I ask that you please respect your procedures and the other speakers and end your remarks promptly when your time has expired. Please note, if you register to speak to an agenda item in hearing of citizens, your name will not be called at this time since you had an opportunity to make your remarks during speakers to agenda items. First, in the queue, we have Roberto Centeno.
I was told to have 2 minutes. Just one?
I have 1 note here.
One? Several people told me 2. Whoa, why don't you hurry through this? Ms. Santos, you said the right 2 words, quality personnel. I'm going to change that to quality teachers. Here's my presentation. If you now want to attract the best teachers like I was, in failing inner-city high schools and even pay incentives as high as $100,000, then you first need to change the football culture at HISD. It is institutionalized. For me, who had 11th graders giving college-level presentations, regular classes, as witnessed by my last assessor, my 24-year career was destroyed because of the dominant football culture at Yates. I reported to UIL that a football coach had wanted me to change a student's grade. He even gave me the form to fill it out. I didn't do it. I reported him. Long story short, only had a minute. I was terminated. True story. I want my termination open, reviewed in light of subsequent events, and of course, reversed. No.
Thank you. Next speaker, Beatriz Rangel. Beatriz. All right. We have Luis Malave. Luis Malave. Okay. Jocelyn Hickerson.
Good evening. Thank you, the board, for allowing me to speak. I have handouts because I know I won't be able to finish all this in one minute. My concern is employment. I'm an associate teacher for the district. In 2015, I applied for the district to hoping to get a permanent contract. It's been 3 years, and I haven't got a contract. I work just as hard as the teachers in the classroom, and as an associate teacher, I'm bounced around the campus all day long, subbing for more than one teacher. I don't think that it's fair that on one position that they hire all one race, and they get the chance to have contracts, and I don't. I spent 3 Christmas, Thanksgiving and Christmas with no money at all. And I'm petitioning the board for the help, and I feel appalled, frustrated, depressed, feel very discriminated, shut out, and I'm just very tired.
Thank you. Next we have Carol Mosteit. Carol Mosteit.
Here she comes.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. Dr. Lathan. First of all, this is Board Appreciation Month, so first thing I want to do is thank all of you for all that you do. I'm married to a man who was on City Council in LaPorte for 12 years. Sometimes it is a very thankless job, so I want to thank you for all you do. I would also like to thank Dr. Lathan. Dr. Lathan has been transparent. She has let us lead our campuses without barriers. She listens to us, and we really appreciate the fact that we started those budget conversations early. So I thank you, Dr. Lathan, and I hope you can become our superintendent. Thank you, and y'all have a good evening.
Thank you. Katriva Rochelle Bergen. Katriva Rochelle Bergen. Okay. On deck we have Chanel Foster.
I have 4 kids that attend HISD, and on 4 different occasions with 2 different court orders, I feel like my kids' safety has not been properly addressed. One court order, I'm a custodial parent, and I decide where my kids go to school. They went on a summer visit, first day of school, they was registered somewhere else. I was not added on the contact list. And the second court order, I have access to my children's school records. And yesterday, I feel like someone tried to humiliate me, and like I said, this is like the 4th time that it has happened, and it's 2 different court orders, and they've both been violated through the different schools that my children have attended.
Thank you. Do you want to? Okay.
Just tell someone else.
Yeah, so one of the district administrators will meet you in the back. Ms. Katriba? Over here. Thank you. Chanel Foster? Chanel Foster? Kelly McCary? Kelly McCary? On deck, Cecilia Edwards.
Don't cut my time because my shirt thinks. So I'd like to remind everybody that about a month ago, a certain trustee, who I won't name, she cited LA charter schools as a successful example of charterization. The same trustee went on to vote yes to explore the option of charterizing our schools. Well, today, 30,000 teachers in LA, thousands of which are charter school teachers, they're currently striking for better conditions for themselves, their students, their schools, and their communities. And one of their demands is to fight charter schools. As they've accurately pointed out, the trend of charter schools encroaching upon the public schools, it directly leads to defunding and the ruining of public schools. It's due time that the board make this realization as well. The fight we're all facing together will not end once these schools are saved. If STAR testing is left in place, it will inevitably, by design, lead to other black and brown schools getting picked for privatization with surgical precision. Not only do we demand y'all sue the TEA, but we demand an comprehensive overhaul of our school funding system.
Thank you.
From recapture to
Thank you.
San Antonio ISD to Rochester.
Thank you. Cecilia Edwards?
Good evening. Good evening, President, Superintendent, board members. My name is Cecilia Edwards, and I'm the president of People's Choice Association. We represent employees in the Houston Independent School District. It was brought to our attention that Central Care no longer has a contract with the Houston Independent School District. They were servicing employees that earn $25,000 or less per year. Central Care facilities are 5 minutes from all HISD bus terminals. Many employees are satisfied with Central Care. Their doctors, staff, clean and beautiful facilities. Moreover, we all know it is imperative that bus operators, truck drivers, bus monitors maintain their health issues. Several employees has worked out of the Butler Terminal was told to visit a new location with a new vendor in Sugar Land, Texas. Many employees are complaining about gas and the time it would take to travel. Many of our members are concerned and asking why they were not allowed to have that transition. We feel someone violated that transition.
Thank you. Your time is up. Next, we have Lindsay Bartlett. On deck, Dr. Pamela J. Boveland. Lindsay Bartlett.
Hi, good evening. I'm here as a parent of 3 children in HISD to ask that you sue the TEA. We are behind you. We support you. And we believe the largest school district in Texas can be the leader of all schools in Texas. Indeed, there is momentum nationally supporting teachers and children against the powers that seek to defund and exploit our children. Public schools are the cornerstone of communities and democracy. Please protect our schools. Sue the TEA. Thank you.
Thank you. Please hold applause. Dr. Pamela J. Boveland, followed by Sister Mama Sonia.
It's going to sound real redundant, but good evening. I'm glad to see you all here. We have got to, there's several things that we have to do. And one of those things is remember, this is Harris County, this is HISD. We have to get together. We don't need to be searching for a superintendent. We have a superintendent. What we have is the fight of our actual public school lives. We have to put up our dukes and go to the legislature, the TEA. We have to fight death by policy. This can't go on. It's not a question of whether they take you over. It's a question of whether or not we privatize public schools. We can still have a board of trustees, totally private schools. So we need to destroy recapture. I repeat, destroy recapture.
Thank you. Please hold applause. Thank you. Sister Mama Sonia, followed by Amelie Godecki.
Work for us, protect us, care for us, help us. We hope you really care about us. As we go through this school year, I hope that the infighting and seemingly lack of transparency doesn't get in the way of why you were voted in. And that's to serve, protect, and make sure our children get a good, equitable, and the best education that you can get. Please stop fighting among yourselves and giving our governor ammunition to make his ridiculous racist rants. Fight TEA, not each other. Are you scared of them? Fight back against TEA taking us over. Do not let them take over HISD. Recapture, really? And I always like to remind you that names do matter. Symbols matter. Delmar Stadium, named after the avowed racist former HISD trustee, must be changed. I speak in favor of Dr. Lathan to becoming a permanent representative, our permanent superintendent rather. Give her a chance to continue to lead HISD to greatness.
Thank you.
Hope you really care about us.
Thank you. Please hold, I want to remind the audience to please hold your applause. Thank you. Amelie?
Pronounced Gerdicke.
Amelie Gerdicke, thank you.
Good evening. I had planned to encourage the board to join the lawsuit against Mike Morath and the TEA regarding SB 1882 and to support and promote current House Bill 736 relating to eliminating the requirement to use public school assessment instruments as criterion for promotion or to make certain accountability determinations, i.e. getting rid of the STAR as our only standard. I still stand by this. Now I also feel the need for a language lesson. This is American Sign Language, not jazz hands. Referring to a sign as a dance move is degrading to individuals who use ASL regularly. Please apologize to the deaf community and stop attempting to silence attendees of these meetings. Thank you.
Evelyn Showrush, followed by Travis McGee.
Hi, I appreciate what Wanda Adams said about having the teachers and the principals involved in everything. Very important. Also, Austin ISD, as everyone may know, plus the National Teachers Association, plus the Texas Teachers Association is currently, as of sometime in December, suing the TEA. I support public schools. They offer public accountability to parents and the community. Charter schools have been successful at siphoning off students from public schools, and at HISD alone, they have siphoned off $2.5 billion in public funds, leaving some public schools lacking the necessary resources. Recently, a longstanding teacher at a well-known charter school here in Houston told me that he worries the charter schools have been successful getting kids into college, but have failed to prepare their students to be able to remain in college. My own experience, maybe 20 years ago at a well-known charter school, was to hear children perform a Rosie.
Thank you, Ms. Showrush. Travis McKee, thank you.
No partnership, no closure, no charter schools, no TEA. After the Trumpish tweets by the governor, we need y'all to pick a side. He did the same thing the President of the United States did. He told you exactly what he thought about you. We would like this board to choose a side and choose Houston versus Austin, Texas, or the TEA. If we can send recapture money back to the state, we can technically afford to sue the TEA. If our recapture money could pay for water parks, it should stay here. We should not send another dime back. Independent and Houston Independent School District should really mean independent. When 90% of our tax dollars are taking care of us, we really don't need the state of Texas. If 75% is going to other districts, that's what they need to be over. The governor is the Joey. since he could have the power to veto bad legislation. The governor is a joke, considering he could have reformed funding coming to our area. The governor is a joke, period. But we need y'all to stand with us and not the state of Texas.
All right, that concludes all of the speakers for hearing of citizens this evening. We're now ready to hear reports and comments from board members. So, trustees, if you wish to speak, go ahead and enter your name in the queue. Right to left? Okay. All right, we'll go ahead from right to left.
Thank you so much. First of all, I wanted just to commend the parent who came down earlier, just a moment ago, and cited Senate Bill 736 about eliminating STAR testing, because that's one of the proposals that's in the legislation just right now. So I would like to encourage each and every one of you, if this is really important to you, and I'm speaking on her item, so I hope you all are listening. If this is very important to you, we need you to go to Austin and let them know how you feel about STAR testing. If you think that STAR testing needs to be eliminated, let them hear from you. Mr. McGee, thank you. I saw you in Austin last week. Thank you for being there. Many of you, if you come here, we need you to travel to Austin and make your voices heard on these particular issues. STAR testing. There's also a bill right now for $7 billion to improve public financing right here for schools. Make your voices heard. Let them see you in Austin for these particular bills that you're standing for. You coming to talk to us. We don't make the laws. We're standing with you on the same issues that you're fighting for. But we need you to go to Austin in great numbers and go to your state representatives and let them know how you feel. We cannot do this alone. We need you to go with us, stand with us, fight with us, because we are in agreement on what you're saying right now today. So we want you to go ahead and move forward and go down there and make your voices heard. Also, I want to just make it clear and let it be restated about the meetings. All meetings need to be posted. All. I just saw 2 different lists a second ago. We cannot have, and we're going to be transparent, they was told not to put a particular meeting on the public calendar. So, but it's on the private calendar, but it was not on the public one, and that is hosted for elected officials only. So I just saw it, and I just asked Veronica to put all meetings on there. So we need to be as transparent as possible. And it was stated, and she was taking directive from the now current president to not to add it. So we're going to be transparent. We're going to be transparent across the board. We have one that's for students only. It needs to be on there. We have one for teachers only. It needs to be on there. We get ready to have one for principals only. It needs to be on there. So people can be made aware of what meetings that we are hosting and who's hosting those meetings. So whatever the master calendar says, the press release and all the public schedule need to say the exact same thing. And so that's the way we're going to start off. I want to thank all of my principals for so far all the wonderful board appreciation items that's been given. Thank you so much. It's always great to walk into the office and see beautiful flowers. Thank you so much. But the work goes back to you for all the hard work that you've done. Thank you.
Happy New Year. This is our first board meeting of the year, so a lot of you I haven't seen. Thank y'all for coming back this year to participate. One thing I want to say about the legislation, there's a lot of talk about increasing public funding. We're certainly glad to see that, the increase in public education funding. There's a lot of conversation around that. But the conversation around the property tax cap is not really happening. That's being kept under wraps. So what I want to say to you is we're funded with property taxes and supposed to be state money, but we're not getting any of that, right? So if the state then increases our public funding and decides to give us money, but caps our property taxes and keeps and limits those dollars, then we stand to lose even more than we're losing in recapture on the other end. So don't be fooled by smoke and mirrors. Make sure you ask all the good questions, and that we are really treating public education better, or are we stifling public education in a different way? So be sure and ask those questions as well. And that's it. Thank you.
So A few things. One, I think we saw in data earlier tonight that, literacy and closing the achievement gap, we may not be making the gains and meeting the goals that we've set. And I think we just need to all be doubling down and making sure if we are all focused on the most fundamental things for our students and moving in that direction together, we're more likely to help our students achieve their greatest potential than if we're divided on things. And then, third thing, college and career readiness that we did not discuss today, but I want to give a shout out to Dr. Cruz for his very thoughtful presentation earlier this month on that topic. And then also a couple of people have talked about this being, Board Appreciation Month. It is apparently a national holiday. It is not something that we have set as a holiday. But I want to make sure that we are thanking the more important people in a school district than the board. The board cannot do its work without the support of our board services staff. And so I would like to acknowledge our staff that is here in the auditorium with us. Thank you. We have a few more that are not here tonight, and then one who works behind the scenes for us and stays after all of us go home. And I want to make sure people know that we've got folks. And I also want to make sure, I'd like all of our teachers to please stand up. And I know we have teachers out there, come on. And then our staff, anyone else who works for our school district, to please stand up. You are all the ones that do the real work for school districts. I want to make sure that you're recognized, so thank you.
Okay, Trustee Santos.
I just want to take this time to apologize if there seems to be a lack of transparency, the turnaround time for the meetings that were posted. And to my colleagues, I'm sorry that there was a confusion. It was a really quick turnaround time. But I'd like to offer that opportunity. There will be a meeting at Heights High School January 23rd for principals, teachers, and students. I don't know what the confusion is with the students. Meeting, but we just want to go ahead and invite the students to be there too. And today I am wearing red. I want to give a shout out to UTLA and LAUSD. I stand with their teachers. I stand with what they do. I stand them supporting our students and our community, well, their community and their educators. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Santos. Trustee Jones?
So I believe we need to sue TEA. I think our lawsuit with recapture is more difficult because of the vote that happened May of last year, I think it was. But I also think we should sue TEA based on the disparate, negative, discriminatory impact it has on poor kids generally and kids of color specifically. So I want us to have a law firm, I'm just going to say that has heart. How about that? Who doesn't have conflicts? Because I'm tired of hearing legal analysis that I don't necessarily agree with because I'm a lawyer and I've looked at stuff. And I'm certain if we sue, other school districts will join us. I'm certain of it. I want to thank the principal. I saw a number of my principals here. I don't know if they're all still here, but I want to thank them for coming. But if I had hair to pull out on my mama, I would pull it out. Because we always talk about teachers, and yes, teachers are important, but how come we never talk about the support staff? How come we never talk about getting kids to and from school, like the bus drivers, cleaning the toilets so the kids aren't going to nasty bathrooms and stuff? We cannot just talk about improving the pay of teachers without talking about improving the pay of support staff. So if everybody can't get a raise, I'm not for anybody getting a raise, because the people that we always forget about are the people who are in most need of the help. So many of them qualify for CHIP. Like, they're literally the working poor. They ain't sitting at home on their desks all day. They're literally going to work, and they cannot pay their bills. And when they miss their checks, they lose their cars, they lose their apartments. So can we please include them? And I think we as a board need to act like those new county court at law Democratic judges who came and dismissed that racist, discriminatory lawsuit and are not penalizing people for poverty. and they are known across the world.
Thank you, Trustee Jones. Trustee Sung?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to thank my colleagues, first of all, for supporting the edits to the SCMC policy to ensure inclusion for special education. It's one step of many that we need to take, but it's a continuation of the investments this district has made in special education, and I believe that we are committed to continuing. It is School Board Appreciation Month, so let me continue by saying that I appreciate all of my colleagues, and thank you everybody who is serving our district, and I look forward to this new year in 2019. It's also, as we've noted, the start of the state legislature meeting. I wish they would meet more often, but this is our opportunity to fix a lot of things in education. You know, Texas has gotten some dings for their approach to special education, and I think that sheds light to our problems with the funding formulas in general and the need for us to fix funding, testing, accountability, all of these things. The state has the opportunity to support us, and so for those from the state who are watching, I would ask you to support us. We're doing the work here. I'm proud of the work this district has done to make investments despite tight budgets in Achieve 180 in special education, in the investments we need to make a difference for our students who need it the most. I'm proud of the audit work that we're doing to ensure fiscal accountability as well. So I ask that everybody work together to support the success of our students in Houston. For the superintendent search, there is a survey. If you go to HoustonISD.org, at the top, there's a survey. I encourage everybody to participate. Thank you, Trustee Santos. You just stepped up and are helping, right? We're all volunteers to help coordinate the search. And so I appreciate your continuing to work with us and support us, because I haven't had to do a lot. All I've had to do is say, you know, I'd like to have some meetings, and they've happened and they've been organized, and I'm grateful for that. And finally, thank you to Ms. Emmy Wences for her 6 years of service on the Board of Education. Very grateful for you and all that you have done for us.
Thank you, Trustee Sung. Trustee Lira?
Thank you. I just want to just state that originally the superintendent search community leaders meeting was posted, but I just found out, and thank you, Trustee Wanda, for pointing that out, because I didn't know it was pulled. But originally when I first saw it, it was there. So I do appreciate that, and I hope we can take care of that. I would like for everybody to be involved with that. It's a really, really important decision. Also, my understanding was when I was on campus, when they did several superintendent search, there was a survey that went out to all principals, school administrators, and teachers. In fact, I read the last one, which was about 30 pages, and I was reading the results of those surveys from administrators, teachers on campus. So that was a trigger there that we had to do it, and it was highly recommended we do it. So I believe this firm is also doing that just to give them that opportunity for them to fill out a survey. The other piece is that, as you can see, we all decided to wear red, but this trustee leader stands in solidarity with all the teachers in LA, because I never lose sight of the fact that that I'm an educator, that I'm a teacher at heart, and that educate means in the Latin educar. Educar means to bring out the best, bring forth everything that's best and possible in all students. And therefore, I stand in solidarity with all those folks out there in LA, because all of us do our best to bring out the best. So we have common issues. They're in the battle. We're in the fight. But we're all fighting to protect and to save public education. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Lita. I just want to wish everybody a Happy New Year. I really do appreciate all of the work that our staff does to support us, that we do on a day-to-day basis to make sure that we move our district forward. So again, and to all of the staff that has also sent cards and flowers and things of that nature, thank you for thinking about us. You guys are at the forefront of our decision making and the work that we do on a day-to-day basis. And being an educator myself, having been an educator again, leading from that space and this work is it's the only way that I serve in this role. So that being said, I also want to make a couple of announcements. I want to thank you to the parents and the teachers and community members for coming out to some of the different superintendent search meetings that have been held so far. We've had a lot of people come and provide some insight on what challenges we're facing as a district, some things that need to be updated in the profile, qualities that they would like to see in a leader. And I just want to thank everybody for taking time, and for people that haven't had the opportunity to do so, to go ahead and find the survey online, because your survey is valuable. Your feedback is valuable. Another thing is that I just want to put a plug in for Sharpstown High School and for any other schools that are, in the sports arena right now. Go and support our kids on the field and in the theater. Sharpstown High School has an event called In the Heights. I think tonight was their opening night. Tickets are available. So Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Support our kids. They're really excited about the production, and I'm really excited for them. I think they're doing it in a new facility, and that's something that I'd like to put in the plug for. Other than that, let's continue to fight together.
Ms. Chair, before you close, I have a question for the superintendent that's concerning some of our students. Madam Superintendent, do we have anything in place, like a hotline or telephone number of any of our parents that may have been affected by the shutdown, that some of our kids may be affected, that if there any direction that's given to any of our principals, if we're hearing of something, that we have resources that we can refer them to? Because I know that have come up, and so I don't have an answer at all, like what are we doing? So that came up, like what is HISD, do we have anything in place? You don't have to address right now, but if there is something that we can just send something out, because I'm understanding that there are some, so I just don't want our kids to go without, we feed them throughout the day, but want to make sure we just keep our eye on our kids, or those parents who are affected by something that's out of our control right now. But I did just want to make that comment.
All right. Thank you, Trustee.
And thank you, Ms. Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Adams. Madam Superintendent, do you have any reports for us at this time?
Yes, thank you. I'm pleased to share that 2 of our schools have been nominated as Blue Ribbon Schools by the TEA. Nominees this year include Progress Chrysalis Middle School, which previously was a Blue Ribbon School in 2012, and Field Elementary School, which is being nominated for the first time. So congratulations to those 2 schools on their nominations. These are... Yes, we're going for the gold in HISD, but these 2 schools were the only ones in the greater Houston area that were nominated, and among 26 Texas schools in all to receive nominations. The winners will be announced in September. Also, our first spring Parent University session will be held this Thursday, January 24th. The 6 locations will be Jones High School, Lamar, Sharpstown, Waltrip, and Wheatley High Schools, and Forest Brook Middle School. I want to thank our campuses for hosting Parent University. Our theme for next Thursday night is supporting your child's academic success. We will also provide a budget update similar to what's provided to the board at our board budget workshops. All sessions begin with dinner at 5:30 p.m. So once again, please come out and support Parent University. Also encourage all of our parents and citizens to go to our district website and review the CTE, which is the Career and Technical Information. You'll be able to look at a particular CTE pathway and find out which schools in our district offers that particular pathway. We also have hard copies that we can share out in the community. So once again, please support Parent University on next Thursday night, January 24th, at one of our 6 locations. Thank you.
Can't say that one, because I have 2 of my principals on that.
Well, actually, you could have said it. Okay, it's not true. It was you will take my time. I had something else I wanted to say in place of this, but that's okay. I'm just kidding. So we just sent out a press release that 6 HISD educators were nominated for the National Life Changer of the Year Award. So the following educators in our district were nominated: Ms. Carlotta Brown, lead principal at Peck Elementary School; Olga Cantani, 5th grade teacher at St. George Place; Deidre Ford Robertson, Senior Manager of South Area Special Education Services. I hear you, Dr. Barrett. Tanitra Robertson, 2nd grade teacher at Bruce Elementary Music Magnet School. Aletha Williams, she's a chemistry teacher at Milby High School. And Gina Wilkins is assistant principal at Whitson K-5 Academy.
Very proud of them. The final nominees have an opportunity in April to go to Hawaii. So we want all 6 to go, but we'll let 1 go if they need to go. All right, congratulations to our life changers in HISD. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we look forward to seeing you at our next regular board meeting on February 14th, 2019. There being no further business, this meeting is officially adjourned at 8:47 p.m.